I'll explain Paris FC the best I can. Not as good as PSG.
Really? Really?
Founded in 1969, they merged with Stade Saint-Germain in 1970. A meeting with Santiago Bernabeu led to a crowdfunding club named Paris Saint-Germain. In 1972, after some disagreements between these two guys, this dude left and created Paris FC, while the other stayed with Paris Saint-Germain. However, Paris FC got to stay in the first division. PSG got sent packing to the third tier. Wait, are we the bad guys? Since then, Paris FC went down quicker than the Titanic, and PSG became and remained a top division side since 1975. In 2011, they were bought by Qatar and became a global phenomenon. Paris FC remains in the second division, although 20% owned by Bahrain. Are all clubs in the city owned by Gulf states? With Zinedine Zidane in charge? They couldn't afford Zidane. Can this club be brought back to Ligue 1 for the first time since 1979? The start of the season made it seem possible. 4 wins in the first 5. Yes, they were all tight and our average possession was 39%, but they don't ask how the matches were played.
We just did our job. Defended home court.
With a very limited budget, a couple players were sold for a combined $845K, which brought in 3 players. Malian international Molawage on a free at center back, who looks like an incredible defender in the division. Next up was Wolf Axe, who came in at $190K. I'd say the name is worth it alone. Finally, Ricardo Quaresma arrived. Yes, he's 38, he's got no pace, but the idea was to play him through the middle in Croudan's 4-2-3-1 system. He's great at set pieces and passing, so in one of his first matches, he assisted Amel in our win over Benarpas Khan. It seemed like nothing could go wrong for us. Suddenly, our cautious approach was not working. I guess getting out XG would bite the team in the ass. By the way, XG or expected goals is just a metric that measures the quality of a chance by calculating the likelihood that it will be scored from that position. The losing streak would be broken by defeating Rodesh 2-0, and a big part of that was thanks to Amel. If Paris FC were going to have a successful campaign, he needed to do a lot better than his time in Ligue 1. The form continued versus Nîmes, scoring in the 4th minute. The problem is that both of Nîmes' strikers were rather quick, and in Ligue 2, physicality is king. Omarsson and Kone both had that pace, and each scored. Croudan's side needed some secondary scoring, and the Axemen would equalize before the half. Unfortunately, Omarsson had a bunch of space and smacked another from outside the box. The French leagues do have a reputation of being a budget shop, and Bernauer learned that the hard way. He's played both the halfback and our Segundo Volante roles, but it would be his replacement who'd get the equalizer. The Glass Knee. Well, his name is Last Knee, but the man has had 2 damaged cruciate ligaments, and legit cannot train after playing a match. So Last Knee and Glass Knee are both suitable. Unfortunately, that's all she wrote. Despite Amal hitting the bar twice, the winning would have to wait. That was emphasized with Valenciennes scoring this as their first shot of the game. Afterwards, we drew Saint Etienne, who had a 3-point deduction to start the season due to crowd troubles. Versus Stade Lavallois, who were one of the worst teams in the league. Another banger. We bounced back with Wage scoring off a free kick, but conceded another because I decided that playing a 17-year-old with 10 pace and 6 acceleration was a good idea. Thankfully, Amel saved the club from complete embarrassment, although not enough for a win. The board wanted us to finish in the promotion spot, which is top 2. France are reconstructing their leagues, so Ligue 1 are relegating 4 sides to turn it into an 18-team division. 10th place and 10 points behind second was unfavorable, although the last matches prior to the World Cup break went a little better. Amel, of course, opened the scoring versus Bastia and got a second late to finally get a win. Before the break, first place Metz was the challenger. However, they couldn't handle Amel. But if you thought we were going to win 2 Ligue 2 matches in a row, you clearly haven't been paying attention. Another draw, although this one was more understandable. 9th had Croudan worried, but the board gave him the trust to continue with his job. After France defeated him, Mexico in the World Cup final?
Hold up. Wait a minute. Something ain't right.
A tough thing with every new save in Football Manager is to figure out who in your squad is worth using and who can be let go. Boutab and Jonathan Iglesias were part of the latter, but there is a strong core of players that are leading individuals in the league. From the goalkeeper Filipovic, Yves Dabila, who's great at center back and as a halfback, Hadjam, who was starting to develop into a great left back, and Chergui at right back. Adjusting the team to play more in the style of wing play had initial growing pains, but the 3 behind Amel would take the mantle for the remainder of the season. This included Loni Ilan Kabal and Alimani Gori, who both played in the winger role. Through the middle, Loni Mehdi Chahiri was the real star of the show. PAFC came to town, and the only thing I know about them is that they have a player that Macwell loves. He didn't play as we smacked them up 3-0. The turnaround was coming. Said no Paris FC fan ever. The domestic league cup in France is called the Coupe de France, and it's usually won by PSG. After getting through some sides lower than us in the French pyramid, an 8th round matchup with Ligue 1 club Lorient awaited. By far the best opposition faced so far. Let's see how this plays out. I'll take it. Going into the last 20, still in the lead. Oh no, come on lads, don't lose this. Oh, that wasn't even a good free kick. Is he doing the can-can on me? He's doing the can-can on me. What is this? With nothing to lose, the side pushed forward. And with no time left, Amel found the equalizer against his former side. No extra time, so it went to penalties, and we had a problem. They had several takers who were more than capable of putting it into the back of the net. We had 4 who were alright, and the rest were a massive drop-off. The competent ones scored theirs, while Davila missed his. Can the 39-year-old man save it at Diarra up? PSG would end up winning the French Cup along with the Trophée des Champions and Ligue 1. So that puts their trophy tally in this adventure at 3. Losing to potential promotion rivals Dijon made the last hair fall off Croudan's head. Transfers were needed, so with Canadian as the second nationality, the coach decided to call CF Montreal's Ismaël Koné to come to the club on a free. He would demand 8K, which was the second highest on the team, but there was future resale value written all over him. So he arrived to training and got injured for a month. Regardless, we were able to turn around the losses by facing some weaker opposition. FC Annecy were dealt with thanks to a Chihiri brace. QRM was even simpler, winning 4-0, not just thanks to an Amel brace, but 17-year-old Radovic coming on for his debut to score the 4th. Then, before facing Pau FC again, we terminated the loan of our top-paid player, Fury, who was making 13K a week. He wasn't adequate enough to even come off the bench. With the extra funds, Elisha Owusu came from Ghent for 70K. An absolute stellar transfer for a guy who's supposedly a good Ligue 1 player and rarely had a bad match. On his debut, he got a 7.1 rating and saw Amel, Chihiri, and Cabal getting on the score sheet for a 3-0 victory. In an important match versus Avra AC, Amel once again came up big with another goal, plus an assist to continue the winning. The run would reach 5 with Amiens at home. You knew it was a good omen when Chergui was wearing a mask due to a face laceration injury. Whenever a player has to wear it, their performance improves 10x. Chergui proved that by assisting Chihiri for a somewhat late opener. Cabal would secure a 2-0 win as Paris moved up to 5th, just 5 points behind 2nd. Bordeaux was right above, so it was convenient that they were the next destination. A side favorite for promotion after a shocking relegation, they won a penalty early. It was a one-sided performance, but Bernauer had an opportunity to make this a smashing grab, but he missed.
Well, we hope not.
That was the only shot, and a tough loss to take. In March and April, the club was getting mixed results. There were 4 wins, including a massive dub over Caen, which saw Amel score a brace. But there were poor performances too. Facing off with the worst team in the league, they could only salvage a draw. Valenciennes seemed like it would have a similar end, with Radovic equalizing. But with minutes remaining, the sight of Jason Bertemeyer caused everyone to stand back and look in awe, as he had all the space to curl a winner, top bins. Saint Etienne followed with Owusu's banger and Amel's 50th minute strike giving a 2-1 lead. However, on a Saint Etienne corner, Owusu decided to play volleyball and undid his hard work as they would equalize, leading to more points dropped. FC Metz was the final match in this run, and they were running away with the league title, with key man Georgia Mikatatse ending up with 20 goals and 12 assists. Any mistakes, and you might as well forfeit. Who's the weak link of the team? There's not really a weak link.
What? What is this? For what? Why?
Might be Hadjam, in all honesty. Thankfully, we had Amel bailing us out once again to leave with a draw. 10 points behind Dijon with 5 matches left, it seemed certain that the French mustard would get promoted, but not so fast. While we were out here making fools out of Grenoble, they got clowned around by FC Annecy 5-2. Then, already relegated Rodèche would get whooped 3-0, which included the Axeman assisting the glass knee. Meanwhile, Dijon drew Amiens 0-0. Next up was FC Sochaux, who seemed certain as promotion favorites earlier in the year, although they were going through a rough patch of form. Their manager prior to the match was simply asked a question about getting revenge over Paris. He went berserk and stormed out of his press conference. Confidence was low for them, and Amel took advantage of any sort of weakness they showed, grabbing 3 goals for a massive 3-1 victory. Dijon would draw versus Nimes and would face us next. Their dreadful form continued thanks to Amel scoring the lone goal. The problem was Bordeaux. Ever since they got eliminated in the League Cup semi-final to Nice, they started to cook. While Dijon were bottling, they won 6 and 7, which included Metz. A victory versus FC Annecy would confirm promotion, but they drew 0-0.
So you're telling me there's a chance?
Yes, all we need to do is to defeat Annecy ourselves, while Bordeaux just had to lose to 19th place Rodèche. Yeah, that didn't happen. A close yet painful miss on promotion, which the board weren't pleased with. Thankfully, they didn't sack Chroo, but promotion has got to happen next season. With 4 Ligue 1 clubs relegated to our division, we needed to strengthen the strong core that would have gotten us to the promotion playoff. If that was a thing last year.
We've been damaged emotionally.
Begrudgingly, that core would be tampered with, as after an argument with Chroo led to his agent getting sacked and being placed on the transfer list, he left for Toulouse for 1 million. Kabila was also causing problems. With 1 year left on his deal and not wanting to renew, he rejected multiple offers that would have given us 1.1 million. So we're gonna lose him for free. Our defensive issues escalated when Lafort broke his bloody leg.
That's no good.
For some reason, Zurich would pay 400k while he was recovering. I'll cart you to Switzerland myself. Although, when the injury happened, our chief scout gave us a suggestion to replace the left back. A right back, who can play left back, who is very one-footed, with his right leg.
Bruh.
He's no longer our chief scout. Thankfully, we kept last season's top scorer, Amel, despite receiving some decent offers. So, who joined us?
No.
After getting rejected more times than at the club, we found a hotbed in Senegal. Daouda Diame of ASC Arav arrived to be Hadjam's future heir. Moussa Kante of Dakar Sacré-Cœur, who Chroo is supposedly close friends with, he'll hopefully give added explosiveness on the wings. Finally, Mbappe came in on a free. Wait, he's not Senegalese? I feel like I got duped by some agent. However, Mboop looks pretty good. The Senegalese 3 came in for roughly 200k combined. Other names to come in were Peruvian Uriel Celi for 160k, Rares Ilie on loan from Nice, Thomas Araujo on another loan from Benfica, and Tierno Balde from Troyes for a third loan. What happened to the 1.7 million we had from the sales? Oh, what the? Well, it's convenient that we played his parent club right away. Just to concede first. Wolfax from season 1 got all the accolades for his name, but I stupidly only gave him a 2-year contract. A renewal was on the cards before Troyes, mostly because he pressured me into it. The Axeman started against Troyes, and in the second half, down by 1, nope, Axeman loses the ball. Good job, man, good job. You want a new I'm withdrawing that contract right now, actually. Despite that terrible match, Paris FC looked promising to start the campaign. Games like the season opener versus Amiens saw a penalty taken by Gori and Mboop scoring off the bench on his debut. Good performances didn't always get the job done though. Example 1, Guingamp.
So sexy.
PSG versus Paris FC is a derby that hasn't happened for a long time and it remains that way for now. Well, at least in the men's game. In the women's game, they're actually quite decent. We would have our first Paris derby as Red Star Not Belgrade FC got promoted from the National League as winners. Wait, does that mean they have more trophies than us? In anticipation of this historic fixture, Ismail Kone scored in the 3rd minute. He scored a hat-trick in 47 minutes, and Moussa Kante added to Red Star's misery. Welcome to Ligue 2, bozos. The Great Wall of China, Wayne Shaw, Jose Mourinho's 2005 bus, all pale in comparison to the immovable object of Paris's defense. From matchday 5 to 11, the backline conceded 0 goals. It's still the same tactic from the end of season 1, which saw Amel score a brace against Grenoble, along with Mboop and Kone grabbing a few themselves. With Chihiri back at Strasbourg, we saw the attacking mid-spot shared between Loni Ilie and a player returning from Arva AC, Chak Umar Diakate. A pretty creative midfielder who's got great tackling to go along with that. After 10 matches, we are first place, but the final clean sheet in the run was a 0-0 draw with Clermont, dropping the team into 2nd. Unfortunately, this is where the form begins to tumble. Toulouse bought Thijs de Linga for 2.2 million last year, but he couldn't help them to avoid relegation. However, the Dutchman proved to be a great scorer in Ligue 2, getting 21 by the end of the campaign. One of those would be a penalty that he won against us, and we could only salvage a draw thanks to Diame equalizing in the 87th minute. Saint Etienne also has an interesting striker, Adam Zidane, who just came from their youth intake last season. Any relation? You can decide. Man was barely 17 by the end of the campaign, and he started 26 times and scored 11. Like Delinka, he too would score against us. And once again, like against Toulouse, we could only salvage a draw thanks to Axe smashing the ball off Macon's face for our own goal very late. The now 11-game undefeated run would end versus Nimes, as Moussa Kone's pace left us in the dust. Then this game-losing goal we conceded versus Auxerre was absolutely painful. Things looked like they were turning around versus Caen, with Ismail Kone scoring in the 10th minute. The lead could have been extended by Ilie and by Axe, who hit the crossbar, but instead, Caen scored off a corner, throwing a monkey wrench into the game. 10 minutes later, we missed an interception, which saw Bouklal get behind our back line to take the lead. You can't be serious. With all those results, we went from 1st to 8th in a span of 6 matches. If I mention the XG table, I'll be in big trouble. We needed someone to step up in the goal scoring department to rejuvenate our winning form. That man will be Mboop. A brace for the kid added with Moussa Conte's goal gave us a 3-1 dub over Abra. Then versus second place Dijon, Mboop. I say ya, Mboop. An incredible hat-trick for the kid that led to the destruction of Dijon. The unfortunate thing about Mboop is that things like this happen once in a blue moon. Despite having the right attributes to be a great striker, the man has 5 concentration, doesn't really press, and is only able to use his right foot. This season missed chances, and the ones he does score usually result in him being in an offside position. We'd hardly see him celebrate much more for the rest of the season, but when he does score, man, it's a party. Another guy who had a burst of goals was the previously mentioned Ismail Kone. He scored versus Châteauroux, although thanks to Endure, who is yet another pacey striker, he'd get 2. While we missed a few good chances and forgot to mark this guy to lose 3-1. However, Ismail Kone would come up big versus first place Troyes. From the Segundo Volante role on attack, he would consistently find space to receive chances, and several of those included some nice long-range curlers to the bottom corner. A 2-1 victory was great, and being in the promotion playoff spots was still promising, although Kone wasn't going to score 20 from defensive midfield. He had 10 by this point, but would only get 1 more for the remainder of the campaign. Him and Mboop would finish as our top scorers, with 11 goals.
What happened?
Pierre-Yves Amel was the hero of Season 1 with Paris FC. He scored 25 goals, including some incredible strikes and headers that gave us a chance for a promotion spot. As you know, we didn't go up. But I don't know what happened from that point on. Did he start believing in his own hype too much? Did he go clubbing every night? Was his brother trying to extort money from him? Does he even have a brother? I don't know. What I do know was that this season, he was stinking the joint. He started many games in the beginning, but after his brace versus Grenoble in August, 18 league matches came and went, and he didn't score a single goal. That included a painful January with losses to Guingamp and Red Star. At least Mboop scored against Annecy, but this was supposed to be an easy month. Instead, we got 1 point from 3 teams that finished in the bottom 6. I made emergency transfers with Ernest Poku loaned in, who could do everything except hitting the net. Bamba Dieng came in on loan from Marseille, as he looked quite good for Ligue 2. Unfortunately, he had the Amel flu, as he'd only scored 2 goals in his 14 appearances. Granted, just 3 starts. But the goals all came in 1 match against Dijon. The last transfer was Luca Hiralainen from Hoffenheim for $600K up front. He pulled an Ismail Kone and got injured upon arrival. I have to be real with you. This wasn't going the way I expected. A 7-game undefeated run? Yeah, with only 2 wins. Amel finally scored during that stretch, yet we drew that match 2-2. He'd score a few more, but went from 25 goals to now just getting 6. We were also suffering several injuries during this time, but none of that should have impacted the goal scoring. It got so bad, Usu decided to say, alright, I'm out, and dipped to Montreal. Granted, it was for $2 million, and Hiralainen was coming back from injury. I had former players who were clubless questioning the team, and another who was praising Amel. There's a reason why it says we're distant. In 2024, we won 5 games, and there were 18. Don't even talk to me about the French Cup. Grenoble, who were the rare few teams we could actually defeat in the league, knocked us out. We ended the season in first place, on the expected points table, had the best defense in the league, which included Filipovic winning the goalkeeper of the year, yet we finished in 8th. 8th! Of course our defenders were great, along with Kone, but our 2 wingers were good too. Moussa Conte ended with 4 goals and 7 assists, and I'm sure the latter would have been higher if we converted our chances. Gori was also respectable with 6 goals and 4 assists. So once again, we look at the strikers. Mboop can have a pass despite his terrible average rating, but Amel? I have no more words. My contract is running out, and after getting graded an E by the board, I thought I had to find a new job. But what club would give a contract to this bald fraud with a 1-star reputation? I'll take it. So with the new contract, we face recently relegated Metz in the opener.
Yeah, I'm a genius.
1.2 million with 15k in wages to start off. Free transfers were key. Bamba Dieng returned, as despite him being crap on loan, 6k in wages with these attributes were worth another shot. Last year's problem with Dabila threatening to leave surprisingly saw him change his mind and sign a new contract. Yet, he needed a partner with Wage losing his legs. Yohan Salmier on 9k a week was that guy. The final free transfer was Bruma making 8,000 per week. Yes, the one who played for...
Champion Galatasaray.
To make our big signing, we needed to sell some players. Yoel DeMarco, who came in on a free in season 1, left for 200,000. Sami Mahur from our second team exited for just under $500,000, and due to a tactical switch, we sold our top scorer, Ismail Kone.
This seems to be irresponsibly dumb.
He was great in the Segundo Volante role, but the lack of improvement in attributes made it difficult to reject 1 million. That's especially true with Daniel Bragança coming in for 300k from Sporting. Yeah, this guy's way too good for us, but he happily signed after barely playing in the last 2 seasons. The big transfer for 800k up front would be Salah.
Yeah, of course.
To play in goal, who is definitely not Mo Salah. Okay, he's not Mo Salah. His name is Marwan Salah, who came from Catania and has history in Bayern's under-19s. The man has a bunch of potential and will eventually take over Filipovic as a starting keeper. However, the Croatian would start versus Saint Etienne, where their star wonder kid Adam Zidane was nowhere to be seen due to the Olympics. The same would be the case with both of my left backs. So Joly coming on loan to play right back had to switch to the other side while having to play Le Cardinal. The match didn't start off great with Dabila conceding a penalty, allowing Demirovic to take the lead. That'd be extended as Filipovic would smack the ball into the Bosnians' dome. We did well to fight back as Bamba Dieng kept getting into great positions, scoring in the 62nd and the 67th. Unfortunately, Salmier gave the ball away, allowing for Etienne to take advantage of another mistake. Thankfully, we got our justice as Bamba Dieng won a penalty late and slotted it in for his hat-trick. Due to the draw, we had to give up a player for 1.7 million. A very specific clause in the pre-match contract. So we sent over Amel. The now former disgraced Paris striker would find a club that would play him even less than us.
That ain't no problem. Huh? That ain't no problem.
We switched Paris's tactic to a 4-3-3 vertical tiki-taka style. One winger wide, the other as an inside forward on attack. Playing like this was beneficial with our strong midfield, which had these two playing wider, but in roles where they went further forward. Bragança dictated from deep, while the outside backs were fullbacks on support. They were told to hold their position and sit narrower. These were the team instructions if you're interested. The rest of the matches in August showcased the strengths of the formation. Hiralainen scored a late winner away to Clermont, and Mbouk bagged a brace against Annecy. Bamba Dieng responded with a hat-trick versus Reims and a 0-0 draw. Our shooting wasn't always perfect. We had the biggest player sale of our saves so far. Freiburg grew a liking for French left-back Hadjam. So much so, their 4 million offer was immediately accepted by our board. I knew it would come. So last season's 76k transfer of Dawouda Diame would get an increase in playing time. Just to be safe though, Roque was brought in for a measly 180k to back him up. The final player to help our midfield depth was Marco Chroo on loan from Lyon, who can also play left back. He scored on his debut ASAP against Sochaux. Sadly, it ended in a draw thanks to Kalulu finding space and finishing well. The month of September would be mixed as we did defeat Caen 2-0 thanks to a gory pen and Hiralainen's first time half volley. However, finishing off the month, 11 pace Wolinski was able to get behind our backline not just once, but twice, having me question Salmier. Oh right, he got behind for a 3rd time, which saw him win a pen. Our 2 goals weren't enough as we lost to Avra, who would be relegated by the end. Then came the month of Mbouk. A stunning hat-trick versus Auxerre and a stat-padding goal versus Saint Etienne would be enough for him to win the Player of the Month in October, while for the club itself, it did have a disappointing draw against Pau FC. Nevertheless, a 3rd win would come as within 11 minutes, we were up 2-0 ahead of Nancy with Diakite and Dieng finishing their chances. Wage would add a 3rd, cementing a 3-1 victory. Despite being on a 4-match undefeated run in the league, we are only in 3rd, 4 points behind Metz and 6 of Sochaux. Although, the team would motor on in November and December. Grenoble gifted us goals, although after they cut our lead in half, Joly would get his 2nd yellow in a span of 4 minutes, giving them the advantage. Don't you fret though, Bamba Dieng and Wage exposed those bozos, getting 2 more onto the score sheet. Then Bamba Dieng told Toulouse, that they were going to lose. That was terrible. As he scored a first half brace. Despite Shaibi getting a lucky deflection, it wouldn't be enough as Bruma made the sport look easy, securing the victory. Chateaureau, on the other hand, got an early penalty and actually made things challenging for us. Side note, the ref must have been really confident to make that call from that far away. We didn't lose thanks to Hiralainen smashing this in, but a draw was all she wrote. In December, there were only 2 League 2 matches, and both were wins, with Gangap not doing enough to resist Bragança's brilliant free kick, and a second Bamba Dieng hat-trick, where he blasted 3 past QRM. Just over the halfway point of the season, we were in second, but only due to goal difference. However, the board was so pleased with Chroo, the original 1-year contract extended to 3 more years. We then didn't score a single goal in January as we struggled without Bruma on the left.
Oh, I missed.
Sometimes in Football Manager, good talents remain on the free agent market, even until January. When I was shown Artur, Doucouré, and Moder as possible players to bring in on a free, I had to get one of them. Artur and Doucouré's wage demands seemed too high at the time, but Moder was reasonable. And by the end of January, we were still the only side interested, and brought him in on a 3-year deal. How a League 2 side signed a more than capable League 1 player is beyond me. We'd only make one more winter signing, and despite having a couple million, we basically got a free loan, Shakur Amar from Atalanta. I saw him more as a rotation option with Bruma, although there began to be some conspiracies that he was Tupac Shakur. I don't think that's how it works. There was an ultimatum. Get promoted, or keep our Finn Luka Hiralainen, who dominated in his box-to-box role, finishing with 6 goals and 8 assists. There were teams interested, and he wouldn't renew unless we kept our promise. February didn't start perfectly, but at least Mboop salvaged a late draw with Rems. Although we could have won if Selly didn't miss his 93rd minute penalty. 16 pens, Then we had a massive match versus FC Sochaux. We could pass them into an automatic promotion spot, but it was a tough fought affair. We nearly took the lead early after an incredible passing move, but our dominance would see Bragança smacking home an insane strike 28 minutes in. Sochaux responded well, but our defense remained solidified in the second as the boys kept a clean sheet and regained second place. Before getting to that, last season, PSG failed to even make the quarterfinals of the French Cup thanks to future winners Monaco. Sadly, with a 3rd straight Trophée des Champions, their trophy tally was at 6, while we were still searching for our first. Surprisingly, the French Cup was looking promising. Sanois, Vitry, and rivals Red Star were dealt with in the 7th, 8th, and 9th rounds respectively. Then we came up against our first Ligue 1 opponent since Season 1, 18th place, Ajaccio. A struggling side, which would give a good litmus test against those above us. This was before Bruma's injury, which is important because he and Moussa Kanté gave them an embarrassment of a lifetime, both getting braces pushing us into the round of 16. Here, we faced a slightly better side named Strasbourg. They finished 11th in Ligue 1, so a little more difficult, but it seemed like it was going in the right direction, until 60 minutes in, Joly nearly gave Chroo a heart attack, but Marwan Salah made a massive stop. At the time, he was our cup keeper, but that wouldn't remain for long. After a couple subs in the 76th minute, spaces were beginning to open up, and Selly found Bamba Dieng in the box to put us up front. No response from Strasbourg, as the quarterfinals awaited. This time, 8th place Nantes. But no matter the placement, no one was stopping Bamba Dieng. Nantes weren't in this game whatsoever, yet we couldn't extend our lead. However, in the last 10, we may have gotten complacent, as we lost possession, and quicker than you can say PSG are overrated, we conceded off the counter. The final whistle would blow, and we went to penalties. Moder scored first, and Nantes goal scorer Hector was denied by Salah. We scored the next 3, and then Mboop would slot the 5th as Paris FC advanced to the semi-finals to face off with Lyon. On the other side, Guingamp were on a miraculous run of their own, but they got smacked by PSG. So we had the opportunity to have our first Paris derby with them. Getting past Lyon wouldn't be so simple. Many, if not all of their starters were better than ours, and their possession style wasn't translating in open play. Although, a near miss off a set piece had us optimistic. Lyon could say the same. Halftime was approaching, and from their free kick, a delivery sent to the back post gave them a 1-0 lead. Later, with less than 20 to go, wow, that is an insane pass. Oh my goodness. It was a good goal, but we still have to grow. If you're interested, PSG won the final and Ligue 1. In our bid for promotion, we had an incredible comeback versus Caen, as despite being down 2-0, the boys fought back. Moussa Kanté first, and in the 88th minute, Bamba Dieng once again scored to equalize. Not enough for a win, but second was still ours. on goal difference. Marwan Salah at this point was the starter. Filipovic had a sinker versus Rams, and he displaced him. While the Cannes match was rough, 2 clean sheets with Avra and Nancy began a winning run. Auxerre were then embarrassed 5-1, in which everything went our way. 0.95 expected goals didn't quite translate like that. Pau FC then had us worried, as they took the lead in the 63rd. Dieng would soon equalize, and with the clock ticking,
I'm coming! Nobody can stop me.
Shakur Amar would then become the starter, as the man was beginning to cook. Versus Grenoble, an incredible assist to Dieng opened the scoring. Bamba would get a second to go along with Diakite's strike to make sure Grenoble's 2 wouldn't prevent us from grabbing the 3 points. Then came Toulouse and their striker Thijs de Linga. This man was making sure Toulouse was fighting for promotion, as he scored 37 this campaign. After his teammates won a cheap penalty in the first minute, it was de Linga versus Salah. Salah! Oh my gosh! Get the song! More Salah saving the shot. Oh, and Shakur! Let's go! Oh my, oh my gosh, that goal! Dieng and Moder added, humbling the home side, 3-0. The clean sheets and thumpings continued as Châteauroux saw the same fate, 3-0. At least they weren't Guingamp, who then lost 4-0. Bamba Dieng had another multi-goal game. 24 goals was what we really needed post last season's disaster class. On the penultimate match day, we wouldn't be conceding. Shakur though would get a goal and an assist, which would not just win the game, but crowned us the league title. Metz, who had a 6-point lead on us, didn't do terribly down the stretch, but when you win 9 in a row and capped it off at 10 against that Metz side, a Ligue 2 title is only right. Fans were in tears after seeing their beloved Paris get to play in Ligue 1 for the first time since 1979. Ballers across the board, fans wanting Shakur to stay permanently, a Coach of the Year award for the once bald fraud, still bald but more respected. Ligue 1, here we come. Well, this should get interesting.
So much money, it ain't funny.
While promotion from Ligue 2 brought a lot of attention onto Paris FC, that wasn't just with the football side. Venture capitalists, Gulf states, and even an AI business bot wanted to invest. Instead, businessman Jacques Derrien, who comes from a wealthy family, was knocking. The man loved 2 things: capitalism, obviously, and the money to be made from football.
I don't like you.
During the takeover, we went through a transfer embargo, where players that tried to sign couldn't come in. The club would be sold for £18.25 million and would raise an additional $6.5 million, seeing it become a public limited company, aka you can buy stock into Paris FC. Despite getting a takeover, the budgets didn't change, and bringing good players in proved to be a challenge. Most of it went to Shakur Omar, who was signed from Atalanta for $1.6 million up front. Fabio Martins also arrived as a potential starter for a season or 2. Before more deals could be made, sales were needed. Thanks to the rise of Marwan Salah, Ivan Filipovic was sold, and Zaragoza paid $1.7 million. Then for some reason, Southampton used their Premier League money to buy Uriel Selly at $1.8 million just to loan him to Ross County. Other purchases included Peter Previtz from Vojvodina for just shy of $1 million. At right back, Enoch Boateng arrived for $550k. We also loaned in Laura as another option in that spot. He could also play left back, which was important because we didn't sign one. Kevin Rodriguez failed due to the takeover, but to sum everything up, Enrique Franquesa was offered a contract to join us in Ligue 1, but instead, he joined Reims, who were in Ligue 2.
Yeah, it's embarrassing. That's embarrassing.
So these are the group of players to help us survive the elite of France. Our Ligue 1 debut with Paris FC began with hosting Lyon in the packed-out Stade Charletti. It began terribly, as Fabio Martins got injured and would be out for a month. Shakur Omar was also injured for a similar time in preseason, so we returned to basics with Bruma and Moussa Conte on the wings. That wouldn't matter, as Jakub Moder banged in Paris' first goal in the top flight since June 1st, 1979. After that game, they would play in a relegation playoff, which they lost in the shootout to Lens. Back to the present, Awar found how to live up to his potential and pulled this off. 1-1 in our debut against the Lyon side on the rise isn't something to scoff at. A 1-1 draw to Brest at home is. At least Mboop scored. If you were worried about us, you're not alone. The season preview had us in 15th, and with Montpellier, who were able to bring in Ruslan Malinovsky, do we even have a chance?
Let's talk about 6, baby. Let's talk about you and me. Let's talk about all the good things and the bad things that may be. Let's talk about 6.
What would actually be a challenge was visiting the Orange Velodrome, where we faced an inconsistent Marseille side with Vladimir Petkovic as coach. 57,000 fans came, not to watch the club they support, but instead witness the greatness of Mboop. An even match on shots resulted in a victory for your boys Paris. The undefeated start continued with Lens as Mboop grabbed himself a brace. The guy picks and chooses his moments. Although he had the audacity to ask for a contract before Lille, where he dropped a 6.3. In the match, we conceded a penalty and allowed Michael Keane to score on us. The good news was that Fabio Martins returned from injury and scored. Now, Shakur Omar came back as well. It didn't last long with him getting injured before halftime and missing over a month. Oh yeah, and we lost. Troyes then absolutely embarrassed us in what was one of the games of football. Yeah, one of them. Rennes was somehow a goalless draw despite this chance and this XG. Nice arrived with Rob Holding, but that was no problem for them, as Miguel Almiron made Diame look like a fool to win a pen. Bro, this guy just came here to get injured. Another month out. Thankfully, Bragança's last season brilliance was continuing as his ball in behind to Bamba Dieng was on the money for him to equalize. Then, with minutes left, a corner delivery from the Portuguese man led to Gori being pushed, and there was only one man who could step up. I say Mboop. A 2-1 result will be replicated away at Angers, with Bamba Dieng scoring both. Finally, it was time for our first ever Paris derby in Ligue 1. PSG versus Paris FC, or how everyone else was labeling it, Mbappe versus Mboop.
I love to play against the best player in the world.
It was a stuff of nightmares to begin, as Lucien Favre's PSG went full throttle. I guess they learned something from someone. Neymar scoring a header in the first 10 didn't make the fans feel good. However, the response was brilliant. Boom! One of the few still here from the start, Debila got us back into the battle. A chance cleared off the line made us look like the strongest team in Paris, and the Mbappe and Mboop battle was tight. Regrettably, a corner in the 53rd minute led to Carlos Soler out-jumping Diame. A highlight from kickoff was just a tease, and Hiralinen's header was not enough, as not only did we lose the derby, but we also lost the striker battle.
Yes, sir.
Defensively, we bounced back, keeping 2 clean sheets versus Strasbourg and Bordeaux. We also didn't score. Shakur Omar did get sent off in the latter match, but fans were hoping to see the form he once was able to deliver. Instead, his replacement Bruma would show how it was done, thanks to Conte's brilliant work. I have to apologize to Musa, as I was going to make him a squad player, but he was doing more than a capable job this season. Peter Previtz would score the winner, and the side would win again versus Metz 2-0. Monaco are one of the other strong sides in this save, while the front four of Nico Gonzalez, Alexander Golovin, Patrick Wimmer, and Kang-in Lee, they weren't messing around, conceding in the 13th. Bro, how did he make that pass? Then in the 24th, and Vaughn smacked home a third, giving us a footballing lesson. Fabio Martins has been nothing short of a disaster. That was in contrast with Shakur Omar, who began scoring again versus Lorient. The Orange men would equalize, and with 10 minutes left trying to get a winner, what are you doing? You just got on the pitch! I had enough of him, and he'd be gone by deadline day where we actually made a profit. Although, my scouting budget was mudded, so Christopher Rocky was sent packing to Crvena Zvezda, aka Red Star Belgrade, for $1 million. In desperation to find a suitable winger to replace Fabio, I took a punt on Martin Michev on loan from AC Milan. The rest of the month saw us draw 0-0 with future relegated Montpellier, which is wild based on their team. Troyes was more positive as Shakur and Mboop both got one to hand us a 2-0 victory. A little over the halfway point, and we were in a legitimate shot of Europe. Top 3 gets automatic Champions League, but with the new European formats, 4th gets you into the playoff round for the elite competition. 5th and 6th get you a Europa League spot, while 7th finds you in the Conference League playoff, if the French Cup is won by someone better. It wouldn't be us winning that trophy though. We did well to make the quarterfinals, although it did require a penalty shootout win versus Metz, which went into the 10th round. Rennes at home for the last 8 seemed ideal, but both of us were putting on an incredible show. How this game didn't end in a 2-2 or 3-3 is beyond me. Sadly, Martin Terrier found space in behind and scored the lone goal. This would prove to be a massive missed opportunity as they lost to Troyes in the semi-final. A Troyes side that only avoided relegation by defeating Auxerre in the relegation playoff over 2 legs on away goals. Well, their triumph over Rennes rewarded them PSG in the final. They lost 5-0. Another trophy for PSG. Could we get a European place on a return to France's top flight? If this Marseille match was anything to go off, yeah, it was possible. Petkovic was massively embarrassed by playing this piece of atrocity that you can basically call it back 7, yet had holes like Swiss cheese. I'm sure Petkovic would know about that. And Boop decided that he wanted to use his precious energy by scoring a brace. Motor continued his excellent season, and of course, our other striker Bamba Dieng got revenge against his former side, who never gave him a chance. 4-0 was another statement to the league. Next up was Brest, and this was a little crazy. 1-1 going into the 93rd minute. Renauer wins the ball, uses his tries long-range passes trait to send Dieng in behind. He fails initially, but gets his own rebound for the lead. Minchev would add another in the 95th to secure the win. Luckily, they were too late. Nantes was a little less dramatic, winning thanks to a sole Bamba Dieng goal. Sadly, all good runs come to an end, as Lens took advantage of Salmier's Ligue 1 expiration date, as he was bad. But the team didn't do much else to help. 5th place was still our position, but there were teams like Rennes and Lorient who weren't far off us. They were our next two opponents, but revenge would come against Rennes with Dieng grabbing a brace. Lorient proved to be fun as well. Ooh, here we go, Bragança. One pass is all it takes. Or one shot. Wow, we conceded right away. However, within 10 minutes of that, Moder did it himself, and Minchev assisted Dieng. Nothing else happened, as another 3 points was won, relegation avoided, and Europe looking more and more likely with 9 to go. The excitement deflated after a 0-0 draw with Angers before the international break. That gave plenty of build-up for Mbappe versus Mboop 2. PSG were just coming off a French Cup semi-final victory over Monaco and had an upcoming Champions League quarter-final tie with Manchester City. Would they be able to focus on this game?
Mbappe!
It was difficult dealing with Fabian Ruiz, even attempts to man-mark him not working at times. Just past the half hour, and we had no shots, but against the run of play, Moder found Shakur Omar for the equalizer. Mbappe though was winning the battle with Mboop, and I'm sad to say that he would win the Paris derby too, making things look easy in the 62nd. We couldn't respond, but had 2 respectable battles. We just got a message from Mbappe.
Yes, sir.
Whatever. The good news was that they began to struggle after this match, which included drop points and elimination from the Champions League. We needed to give our best shot to achieve European football. I didn't care which competition, as when you're in that spot, you just don't want to let it go. Strasbourg was fun as Dieng scored a lone goal. The disappointing part was Shakur getting injured yet again for, you guessed it, a month. Nevertheless, that gave a chance for Minchev to get some first team minutes, and the Bulgarian took the most out of his opportunity. Down 1-0 away to Bordeaux, he assisted Bamba Dieng to equalize. While he was offside for a potential winner, a 1-1 draw sufficed. Lille followed up and held their own for the first 60, but like a game of Jenga, one mistake and it all collapses. Minchev would open the floodgates and get an assist to Dieng. Following, Mboop told Chroo to put him on, and he scored a brace in 2 minutes. He got another versus Metz, who were the team that got promoted with us. Quite a contrast, as we were looking good for Europe, while they got relegated. 3 matches remained, with at least the Conference League safe by 7 points. The run to end the season was going to be tough. Monaco, Nice, and Lyon. Monaco were taking advantage of PSG's form and were building up a title chase. With PSG drawing Marseille, they could go 2 points within them. A loss for Paris would be fine, and based on Mboop's compass, it was going south. Yet, Monaco were missing all these chances. This Salah save with 5 left on the clock against Ligue 1's top scorer was a massive moment for about 5 minutes. Monaco, desperate for a winner. They're trying to give themselves a chance for the league title. Bamba. Gonzalez, no! All that drama just for them to bottle it against Marseille at home and lose the title to PSG. So let's focus on ourselves. 2 points separated us and Nice for 4th. And with a visit to the Allianz Riviera, it proved to be a great climax. Despotovs and Moder exchanged goals in the first half hour, and our Bulgarian loanee Minchev would take the lead in the 61st minute. However, there were highlights all over the place, and late into the match, Thor's positioning was terrible. Despotovs was found and gave it to an open Laborde for the equalizer, meaning Nice kept their 2-point lead. They defeated Rennes on the final day to clinch 4th, but we ended the season perfectly fine. Lyon went down 3-0, seeing Dieng get his 14th, Moder grabbing his 8th, and Moussa Kandé getting his 1st to go along with his 10 assists this campaign. Lyon almost came back, but we did enough to defeat them and finish in 5th. Europa League football already, and while depth is needed for that adventure, the now Ligue 1 Coach of the Year can probably handle it, especially with all that stock exchange money. The previous season was a shock to many, including to Marseille, who were defeated twice. We faced them in the opener in our 5th overall campaign, as a soon-to-be Europa League club couldn't have started the match better. Beautiful football was played for Chroo Mar's opening goal 31 seconds in. Our level of sauce was too high for them, as Bamba Dieng later tucked home a rebound, and several minutes before halftime, Tupac Shakur found him for a 1v1, which of course, he finished. And Zola would get one back from Marseille, but with less than 20 to go, they scored another? Then with less than 10 to go, they equalized? Oh my gosh. Come on, no.
Spoken like a true fan who's come to the realization, the devastating realization that football is just not for them.
3 seemed to be a number we liked, as the next 2 fixtures had to score that many in each. Bamba Dieng was clearly going to have a monstrous season, as he had 2 in both. But what about the side overall? With this much money to spend and depth being needed for our first European adventure, the free agent market was the best bet. Carlos Abad as the backup keeper, Sebastiano Luparto to rotate with the center halves, Balikande in case Daouda Diame wasn't available, Clement Michelin for the same reason, but for the right back Boateng, Anas Zarouri was also important to back up Moussa Conte, especially when the Senegalese man got injured before the season started. The final free transfer was Jos da Silva, which made our midfield quite bloated. That was in addition with the only transfer we actually had to exchange money, Michael Massi from Paraguay.
No, Mikey, that was so not right.
He had a rather unfortunate first name, so someone in my Twitch chat used their channel points to change his first name for the memes. We also brought back Minchev for another year on loan. The key outs included Yohan Samier to Bristol City for 250k, Ruma joining him for double the price, the departure of the 5-year vet Alamani Gori for 650k, and Montpellier bought Charles Traore for 1.6 million up front.
Who in the blue hell are you?
Alright, Season 4 saw me bring in several new gems from Africa and South America for either free or low transfer sums. The Ivorian was one of them, and if any more become important players or get sold, I'll let you know.
1 minute, 37 seconds later.
Let me introduce you to Alvaro Diaz, who came in for a free from Peruvian side Escuela Técnica del Ejército. Despite having limited youth recruitment, they produced this man mountain center back with potential so high, it's already valuing him at over 40 million. Despite his defensive attributes not being the best yet, the performances were positive. So he was thrown into the deep end versus Monaco alongside Peter Previtz. The Serbian would score in his own net.
What are you doing? What are you doing?
But don't you fear, Yaku Motor was still here, banging in goals. Alvaro Diaz would then assist Nico Gonzalez for the game-losing goal. Marwan Salah had enough. On deadline day, an offer arrived from Gladbach. Despite me trying to persuade that his modeling career would be finished in Germany, he didn't care and wanted to play in the Champions League because he wanted to get back playing at that level? Bruh. You were at Bayern for 1 season, for their under-19s. What do you mean back at that level? A 20 million combined deal was upon us. But suddenly, here comes the money!
Here we go!
They offered 21.5 million up front, and Salah would end up going to a Europa League club. I see how it is. I was panicking to replace him and ended up bringing this random Bolivian as a cup keeper. We didn't use any of the Salah money for a starter. Instead, we loaned in Arno Tenas from Barcelona. He stopped a penalty on his debut, although he didn't get any help on this corner as we lost 1-0 to Lille. 3 losses already, so let's talk about the Europa League. If you hated the changes being made to the Champions League, well, you're not safe in the Europa League either. Like the former, you're in a 36-team table and play 8 matches. Paris FC's debut in Europe would be a home fixture versus Lech Poznan. Chroo Mar's goal went along with Diakite's 2 for a 3-0 topping. An away trip to Linz, Austria to visit Lask proved to be an initial challenge. What a great view. Sasha Horvath gave the Austrians the lead, but our Europa League striker Mboop would equalize just after the half. Zarouri would take the lead in the 72nd, but Lask responded with a Stojkovic red card, and Mboop and Shakur piled on the misery for a 4-1 win. In the first 6 matches of the table, there was only 1 stain on the record. It wasn't to Olympiacos, Karabag, or Sturm Graz. Brøndby, on the other hand, would surprisingly give us our first loss. Maybe the extra midweek fixtures were catching up to us, but the team didn't play to their best. Some poor defensive slip-ups and a brilliant individual run from Aquino gave us a day to forget. Nevertheless, after 6 fixtures, the table had us in second. Before we finish the final 2 matches in January, let's catch up to speed in the league. Paris FC saw matchday 6-13 have its ups and downs. Angers were spanked, Lorient were tricky, but a Bamba Dieng brace helped in the end. Brest was one of those games, but the boys bounced back versus Guingamp with Bamba Dieng getting another brace and Bragança continuing to be a brilliant player. He just decided not to be that versus Lens. I mean, we let Felix Pastelak score on us. To be fair, this Buxa goal to give him a 3-1 lead was insane, and a crucial safety goal, making Bamba Dieng's brace go to waste. A home draw to Strasbourg was also annoying, not just because we deserved a win, but because I couldn't defeat this guy. Troyes brought some fight and had us drop more points. Thankfully, Bamba Dieng scored a brace in the first 23 minutes versus Nice, quieting them up. The mentioned Brøndby fixture occurred after, but following that disappointment was PSG, aka Mbappe versus Mboop 3. Injured edition, as I had to inject a needle in order for him to play. I should have just let him rest. It's not like we had a terrible match against them. However, it's proving to be difficult to win the derby or the battle with Mbappe. I'm not even going to mention the trophies this time. The 2 league matches in December would turn things around, with no help from Alvaro Diaz and Hiralainen allowing Diaz to score the most simplest of goals. However, Lyon wouldn't be able to handle Bamba Dieng as a sole mistake led to him having enough time to make some tea, run to Shanghai, speak to Ule, and run back, as well as scoring his own rebound. Then, with added time coming, Dieng and Motor combined once again, as Bamba remained just onside for the winner. It was no fluke, as at home, Rennes couldn't handle the guys either, leaving us in 4th place thanks to several good clubs struggling. The African Cup of Nations happens every 2 years, usually in January, and if you're a somewhat successful football side, you'd lose 1 or 2 players. If you're Paris FC, you'd lose 5, one of which was the top scorer in the league, and 3 of them were fullbacks, leaving just Michelin all on his own.
Oh my God!
So I had to use 4 center backs to fill the entire back 4. The one game they did play with each other wasn't great, as Irvin Cardona scored the opener, and Boop responded by stealing the ball and equalizing. He'd also score a brilliant header to take the lead for about 49 seconds. It was in the French Cup, and the shootout ripped my soul away as Moder had his pen stopped. It thankfully returned as Cardona completely missed the net. We'd stay composed for the rest while the Bolivian Torres stopped one and saw Ali ring the post. However, I couldn't use these 4 for the entire month, so I brought in Millenarios' Dylan Rua for 1.6 million. He'd play on the right, but got injured later in the month, as in Paris tradition. The matches he played in were initially great. A 2-1 victory over Bordeaux saw another banger from Bragança, and Shakur winning the game with this goal. The Angers match after can be summed up with one moment.
Encara Messi, 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 gol, 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 gol.
That was for his hat-trick, and Boop filled in for Bamba Dieng better than you could imagine. He got his 6th of the month in a 3-2 win over Reims. While he did not contribute in the cup match against them, he didn't need to. The Hammers were our toughest opponents of this phase, and with Ange Postecoglou, aka Big Ange, as their manager, with that result, we needed to win against Red Star to guarantee a spot in the round of 16, as just like the Champions League format, 9th through 24th sends you to a playoff round. This fixture proved to be more difficult than anticipated, as Red Star's low block closed down a lot of space. However, in the 85th minute, with a little bit of luck, Bamba Dieng returning from AFCON was able to get the winner, which squeezed us into 8th. With everything said and done, Ligue 1 had the side placed in 3rd, level with Marseille. They'd be our French Cup opponent, and in March, we would face FC Copenhagen in the Europa League.
And nothing can go wrong.
People talk about mid-season slumps in Football Manager, and I experienced that before in our 2nd season, although that was down to poor finishing all around. However, I thought how we played generated enough chances to avoid such things. What I didn't anticipate was the following few months. Monaco at home didn't begin well with Diame's injury. We were competing with them, but Nico Gonzalez was able to shrug off Previtz to get the opener. We soon won a penalty to equalize, but off a corner kick, the mountain of a man Alvaro Diaz allowed Vanderson to slide in front of him to concede a header and lose a tight match 2-1. Marseille in the French Cup. At least Mboop scored. By the way, that was Tenas in goal, not the Bolivian, since he was injured. Lorient didn't start well either, with Moritz Jens taking the lead in the 10th minute. Don't worry, Mboop was present to get a brace to lead us to victory.
No.
Well, that came out of nothing. We've been the better team though, so I was confident a winner would be found. So I was confident that we lost. The Nantes match stopped the bleeding with Mboop's rich vein of form continuing, but that just proved to be like putting a band-aid on someone having open heart surgery, as against Lille, now Jonathan David, Ankara Jonathan David. What? How are you giving that as a penalty? Alvaro Diaz then wasn't being strong enough on the ball, which allowed David to find a wide open way, making sure Mboup's goal would come in vain. You might think that with some of these errors today that he might be the worst defender you've ever seen, but actually, he's by far the best performing center back. With us dropping to 4th, we now needed to worry about Copenhagen in the Europa League. Paris FC's European knockout stage debut would see the most unlikely of players score our first goal, Remus Bakur, a Romanian from our second season youth intake. While his passing stats aren't anything to write home about, whenever he played, things tended to happen. The Danish club swiftly responded thanks to Tenas, but Bergansha had a free kick lined up. Banger after banger after banger for Paris FC. Now where was Mboupé in all of this? Well, here's one, and
Mbappe, goal!
A 4-2 win would be enough, as a draw in the reverse fixture had us moving into the last 8. Before we got there though, Ligue 1 continued to provide difficulties. A 0-0 draw to Strasbourg, a dominant display ruined by 3 minutes of fraudulence by Tenas, and somehow not getting a second versus Brest overshadowed a lone win versus Lens. At least Bamba Dieng finally got back onto the score sheet. The reality of the situation though is that we're balling a Champions League place to sides who aren't really better than us. At least, that's what I thought. Paris FC versus Bayer Leverkusen in the quarterfinal of the Europa League looked like a long shot for your boys. Looking through their side, their players are clearly better than ours. Although one big miss for them was Florian Wirtz. It wouldn't have mattered if they had him though, because no one would stop Boubacar Mboupé. The match was surprisingly easy, although Leverkusen were pushing for an equalizer, but Arnaud Tenas remained calm to keep our lead. Then seconds after, Mboupé got behind again and gave us a second. An incredible advantage going into the Bayer Arena. During the second leg, both sides exchanged chances, and I made some tactical changes. For a while, it was going fine, but a silly mistake by Davila in the 59th minute began to bring some nerves. Those were relieved, as in the 78th, Bamba Dieng came off the bench and brought back our 2-goal lead. As the game was reaching its latter stages, I began to go more and more defensive. Then out of nothing, this throw-in led to a Schick goal from 2 passes. I told the lads to focus, but in the dying stages, oh no, Schultz, Schick. Extra time led to penalties. Here we go. Let's go! One of the, I thought we missed there. Can Tenas stop him? Yes! Tenas! Redemption arc! Let's go. Shakur. Oh, he almost missed. Schick. He scored 1. He almost scored 2. And he scores in the penalty shootout. Bamba Dieng slots it home. They miss this next one. We go through. Come on, Palacios. He tucks it home. If Diakite scores this, we go to the final. Not the final, the semi-final. Diakite. The job was done, and we'd soon face the Europa League kings. Due to the stress of the Leverkusen tie, the 12 match in between was managed by the coach's chair. It seemed promising, but the score remained 0-0 until the last few minutes, where Tenas conceded this. The guy's either insane or shocking. There's no in between. Yet, there's hope for the chair, as in the dying moments, a penalty was won. All Minchev had to do was tug it home to save a point. That's not good. And now there was going 3-0 down to Nice at halftime. This time, the bottle had to be thrown. The lads not happy about it were subbed off, and one of the guys coming on was Daniel Bergansha.
Banger! After banger! After banger!
The momentum was on our side. We were going to pull a Marseille. Until we didn't, since no one decided to mark Darami. Heading into a Paris derby, this was crucial as we dropped into 7th place and needed to finally defeat the Parisians for the first time in order to have any chance at the Champions League. Mboupé versus Mbappe 4 ended up being the Fabio Vieira show? Modern would equalize, but once again, Fabio Vieira found all this space. The first one was on Luperto, who was brought in at left back to be more defensively solid. On the second, he decided to take that too literally by being closer to the goal than the man playing right wing. Vieira would assist the third goal after making a different left back look like a fool. 3 L's in a row, and if you count that Leverkusen match, it was basically 4. And we had Sevilla next, while everyone was in disarray. I'm sorry, I'm not talking about how we lost to a 36-year-old Jordan Henderson and 34-year-old Harry Maguire. I refuse. Not a great way to end a fairy tale run in the Europa League. And the sad thing is that we might not even get back into that next season. Despite beating the piss out of Bordeaux, we were still in 7th, which is a Europa Conference League playoff spot. It was a must-win versus Rennes, and down 2-1 heading into the final 10, and Mboupé won a penalty. Of course he would take it and equalize the match. The hunt was on for the winner. Don't you fear though. Mboupé won another penalty, and with ice in his veins, he would convert again, but it wasn't enough. Despite defeating a struggling Lyon side on the penultimate day and getting our revenge versus Marseille, our position in the table did not move. Strasbourg are going to the Champions League playoff. The manager of Strasbourg, who was the same man who got promoted ahead of me in season 1, is now going to the Champions League, which is a brutal pill to swallow. We're on to Paris FC.
Here we go.
So why would former World Cup winner and more recently Europa League champion Raphael Varane join us? Well, no one wanted him. And despite me thinking I was lowballing him with a 55k a week offer, he immediately accepted.
Come in my mother house.
With an actual good budget for once, we were able to make several signings. An unpredictable attacking midfielder from Norway named Jonas Rigsetter, Caio Henrique from Monaco, who's an impressive attacking fullback, and the last key signing was Dominik Livakovic from Wolves to play net to mentor our Bolivian Jose Luis Torres. Several other young prospects came in to be rotation options. This included Orhan Çetin for right wing, Peter Kokosch as striker or as an inside forward on the left, Younes Beniaya from Morocco who chilled in the under-19s, along with Pasquale Rosa from AC Milan. These were all the sales that were made, with a key one being Luka Hiralainen. He had less than 2 years left, wanted to leave, and our midfield was bloated. So while I would have loved to keep our Finnish giant, he went off to Almeria. Luperto also left, and so did Peter Previc, who couldn't turn down the chance to move to Dortmund. That allowed Patrick Pfeiffer to come in as a speedy rotation option at the back. With Livakovic, Caio Henrique, and Raphael Varane on their debut, we had Marseille on the exact same match day as that dreaded game last season. Yet, for some reason, despite them playing this structure of a formation, they were able to keep more possession than us and score 3 goals. Henrique on a 6.9, Varane on a 6.6, and Livakovic on a 5.9. Marseille's 2 strikers, by the way, scored 50 goals combined this season.
That's an exasperation.
Exaggeration. Read a book, would you?
Forget all that. It's the home debut that really matters. We were hosting RC Lens, a club Varane played for prior to making his move to Real Madrid. He must have been too sentimental, as we were absolutely atrocious. Specifically Livakovic and Caio Henrique, but our attack wasn't helping either. Shakur Amar's few small injuries in the month weren't ideal, but our top scorer was Jakub Moder. After defeating Montpellier 1-0, he was still our only goal scorer. That wouldn't change after Lyon, where they decided to join the clowning of Paris and smacked us up 3-0. An awful start to the season that was filled with Conference League qualifying matches. The UEFA Europa Conference League was a competition created in 2021 to include more countries in European football. It's a 3rd tier level behind the Europa League, and us finishing in 7th meant we had to play 4 matches to actually participate in the damn thing. Making a comparison, in August, we scored 2 goals in Ligue 1 through 4 matches. In the Conference League qualifiers, we scored 14 in 4 matches. That included Mboop getting 2 hat-tricks versus Sivasspor and a brace against Feyenoord. Despite that, these proved to be more difficult than I anticipated, but attaining a 2-0 win in the second leg with Feyenoord had us advance to the league phase. Yes, even the Conference League can't run away from UEFA's new format. The positive is that we only had to play 6 matches in this section. This phase at times was simple, defeating KF Skandia, Olympia, and Punic comfortably. However, Karabakh was difficult because Kokosch decided to be a dumb and get a 3-match suspension. We still won, but I can't say that for Lyngby and Panathinaikos away.
Shut up, Panathinaikos!
Granted, I did rotate my side for all these matches. However, Lyngby had this Daniel Eriksson guy who had 6 finishing, scored 2 on me, which included a 92nd minute equalizer, literally minutes after we thought Dieng got the game winner. Nevertheless, we finished 5th and would play Maccabi Tel Aviv in the round of 16 later on. Paris FC were in the relegation zone entering matchday 5, and something was needed to get us back on track. Joss Da Silva would become a consistent starter on the team as he'd have a fantastic September. A month that saw him score 3, which included wins over Lorient, Lille, Brest, and Guingamp. Finally, the team was finding consistency. Livakovic and Varane were actually performing well. How could anything go wrong? Mbappe versus Mboop number 4. We lost 3-0. In more interesting news, PSG president Nasser Al-Khelaifi scaled down the funding for the club, which saw them spend the most since season 1. Granted, they did sell the most since the 2nd season and are no longer rich. Maybe one day, we'll see a different Paris club win Ligue 1. Just not this year. Joss Da Silva was getting love, but everyone was infatuated with Jakub Moder, who last campaign was our only player in Ligue 1's team of the season. I'm sure his idol Moussa Sissoko would be proud. Against Troyes, the man showed up, scoring 2 decent shots, along with Mboop and Bamba Dieng getting on the stat sheet as well. It's a shame we couldn't save one of those goals against Nantes in a 0-0 draw.
It's good to know that there are other useless people in this world.
I got absolutely rinsed by Wilfred Nancy's Nice. The former CF Montreal manager had Terran Moffi grab 2 in the first half hour. To be fair, we didn't help ourselves, especially on Hector Bellerin's goal. From this point on, Wilfred Ball would start to cook. Unlike us, who lost to Monaco 1-0 thanks to a guy who has Maestro in his name. Did I even have a chance? We were set piece specialists versus Rennes, as all 3 of the goals arrived from them. Thankfully, we were good at them for once, as Rennes scored 2 from seemingly nothing. Also, getting the better of Alexander Fry was nice too, because the man criticized me before the match, saying that we played tippy-tappy stuff. He was still well ahead of me on the table though. Against our arch nemesis David Guillon, and Boop knew it was time to get on the score sheet. In the second half, Dilsaroun would score an ugly equalizer, and Boop had a chance to win it, and so did Alvaro Diaz. But after Shakur Omar did well to win the ball,
Omoder! Yeah! Oh, what a goal.
More dominant wins followed, with Auxerre catching the smoke 3-0, and Reims 4-2, which saw a new signing cap off the match. For 400k, I brought in a new gen from South Africa named Bongo Musa Nhalapo. We may not see much of him in the near future, but even with a little bit of development, he'll be our guy up top. The only other deal in January was seeing Felikande move to Caen for 500k. Moving into the second half of the season, a massive match against Marseille was happening, and we needed to be at our best to get a result, especially on defense.
I'm too old for this.
Well, Alvaro Diaz will have to step up. Where's my backline? Where are my South Americans? Oh, the South Olympic game qualifying!
Pain.
We at least defended well against Marseille for 89 minutes. Just not the first. Montpellier was a snooze fest too, leaving us in 7th, quite away from the Champions League playoff spot. So versus Lyon, who had the same ambitions as us, we responded right after the half by winning a penalty, and Caio Henrique slotted it in. Quickly after, Shakur Omar sent Dieng in behind to take the lead, which had me hyped. Another goal for Bamba sealed the result. Things were heating up, so let's add more to it with the French Cup. We've had many missed opportunities in the French Cup to at least make the semi-final, let alone the final. This venture began with what I initially thought was an Irish-French team.
Are you dumb?
That's why you stay in school, kids. Of course, they were dealt with easily. Auxerre in the 10th round was just as easy as our league fixture. But that's always the case when Mboop gets a brace. David Guillon Strasbourg in the Sweet 16 needed to be a win, regardless if our backline was in South America or not. Mboop knew what to do and opened the scoring 20 minutes in. Zaroury later scored a safety goal to confirm the victory. The quarterfinal opponent was Lens, which witnessed the greatest goalkeeper performance in the French Cup's now 111-year history.
Ready?
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
Dross da Silva also scored this in a 6-0 victory. This was their goalkeeper, and I think 17 reflexes was a lie. So just like that, we were in the semifinals for the first time since season 2. Opposing us were Rennes. They were on a fantastic run of form, which included defeating PSG and Marseille. Paris FC, on the other hand, luckily, I didn't draw Guingamp, but man, it was damn close. Bamba Dieng off the bench had a great strike with his weak foot in the 91st minute to deliver a 1-0 victory. The only other match in this sequence was versus PSG, and Mbappe versus Mboop 6, and it started off with several chances being exchanged, but as usual, it would be PSG who struck first. Not really sure what Caio Henrique was doing there. PSG seemed dominant on the ball, but they were playing with their food too much as Araujo's weak pass was stolen by Shakur, who did a give and go with Mboop to equalize the match. Wait. And Boop is winning the battle.
Yes, sir.
They scored a third, and we would lose yet another battle. Still 7th, and well off 4th. It was time to make our first final in the save, but Rennes weren't going to make it simple. They were the better team in the first half, but it would be Bamba Dieng who'd score the opening goal. However, one mistake in the second half led to an immediate counterattack for an RDT equalizer. Moussa Kanté then got injured, and while his output was slowing down, it was a shame to see him gone for over a month. We managed to survive the rest of the 90 with Livakovic playing well, and with no extra time in this competition, we had penalties. It was in FM's hands, and both the opening takers RDT and Moder placed theirs well. Mayer for Rennes sent his countrymen the wrong way, and Caio Henrique just got his in. Weary Panenka Zlavakovic. Braganza then responded with a Panenka of his own. A battle of Panenkas, it seems. Bourigeaud accepted the challenge by also doing a Panenka. Surely Kokas wasn't going to do one as well. No, He smashed his in the bottom corner. Good man. Perrier. He Panenkas it, but he fails. And Mboop can send us to our first cup final in this save. Mboop. 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 Let's go. It may have been lucky, but we needed that as we weren't getting that in the league. Conference League, however. Maccabi Tel Aviv in the round of 16 of the Conference League proved to be more difficult than I anticipated. The Turkish man Satin scored in the second minute, making me think this was going to be a bloodbath, but it ended 1-0. The second leg saw Mboop score. But that was also the only goal. 2-0 in aggregate would see us face Aston Villa and come up against the European king.
Good evening.
I don't know what Unai was cooking, but we were getting outclassed at home. You know, there's a saying, when you face a 4-4-2, you match with a 4-4-2. However, I don't have players to do that, so let's go 4-2.
Wow, impressive.
So that was a mistake. We managed to salvage everything with an Mboop goal late, but going to Villa Park trying to stay in the game as long as possible, we would eventually collapse with Ali Akman blocking up Bragança, leading to a Calvert-Lewin goal. Zolis found the second, giving Villa a 3-goal advantage. Our Norwegian Eugen Jonas Rigsæter would get 2 back, but FM would troll me by having Zolis get another in the 95th minute. These English sides, man.
Lucky man, sometimes.
The lead up to our first French Cup final had 7 Ligue 1 matches, and we won 6 out of the 7. The highlights being wins versus Nice and Rennes away from home, 2 teams who we were chasing for a top 4 place. The lone drop points would be crucial though. The match was versus AS Monaco, another club we have never defeated in this save, let alone draw. However, with Shakur Omar's opening goal, it could finally be coming. In the latter stages of the match, Zaroury off the bench won a penalty, which would see Caio Henrique making it 2-0. It's finally going to happen. But when you think you're safe and sound, corner kicks. Nico Gonzalez scored that, and with us in added time, oh no. What are you doing? Come on, stop it, please. Another fucking Panenka. A painful draw, which would see the club 5 points behind Marseille, basically ruling out the Champions League playoff. We were pretty safe for 5th or 6th, which is a Europa League place. But at this point, that didn't matter. Paris FC have never won a domestic cup trophy. Before joining them, the only type of victory they felt was in the 2nd division of France in 1971 and the 4th tier in 2006. In 2028, they could finally win the French Cup and become the 7th Paris club to win it. Yo, 6 clubs in the city did this before us? The opponent would be Nimes, a Ligue 2 side who had an impressive run defeating Nantes 5-0 and winning on penalties in a thrilling 3-3 draw with Marseille. They couldn't be overlooked, but they had to get through this side. Livakovic, who was displaced in the league by our young Bolivian, but had the capabilities to deliver in the big moments. Our Colombian right back Rua with Caio Henrique on the left side. Rafael Varane leading and partnering with the young Peruvian Alvaro Diaz. Playmaking from deep would be the club icon Bragança, who had Jos da Silva and Jakub Moder ahead of him. Moussa Conte was our right wing, but on the left, the 4th best player in Ligue 1, Shakur Omar. Up top, with Bamba Dieng injured, it had to be Mboop's moment. Their side had Cabal, who was with us in Season 1. Regardless, it was proving to show that the moment was too big for them and the perfect time for Mboop to shine. And we were playing rather quite well. Mboop, 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 Mboop. Mboop! Mboop! Nimes got rattled and conceded a penalty a minute after, which Mboop had to tuck in. Nimes had a great story, and it would have been nice to win the final after losing it 3 times in the past. But this is Mboop's world, and we're just living in it, as the man with an unknown place of birth would claim a legendary hat-trick and help us lift this glorious trophy for the first time ever. The hangover afterwards lasted for the rest of the season, as we claimed 1 point in the final 2 matches, finishing in 6th. Bamba Dieng was still our top scorer, despite having a massive drop-off. Shakur, Alvaro Diaz, and Moder were the top performers, Chroo would become an icon, and finally, we were able to add another trophy to the count versus PSG. I think we're starting to catch up. Out with the old and in with just as the old. Paris FC signs Nathan Ake for 15 million on a 1-year contract.
For sure.
Rafael Varane retired after we didn't give him more money than what he was already making. But who else left? Mostly just rotation options like Zaroury, Quatang, and the Michelin Star Man. But there was a key exit. That name was Josh Da Silva, who had a great season. However, he was turning 30, and I watch Liverpool. I know what comes next when you don't freshen things up. So he went to Real Betis for $9.5 million. As the season went by, a new contract was given to Michael Massey, which caused Bragança to fill into Da Silva's box-to-box role. For Make, there weren't too many signings. A rotational right back named Sacha Boey, Alan Virginius arriving for $3 million because I was trying to find a significant improvement over Musa Conte. Instead, he kept getting called the Virgin Vinicius. Finally, we signed a Romanian new-gen center-back from Ferul named Yunut Mihalcha. Many loans went out too, including the South African striker whose pronunciation I'll learn by the time he returns. Massive changes were also arriving for our rivals PSG. Lucien Favre finally retired at the age of 71, and the replacement was Wilfred Nancy. The former Nice coach who finished in second has a style of play that requires the team to play with 3 at the back. It's a shame PSG don't have the money anymore to fund the necessary changes.
Tell them to bring me my money.
Duranville, Andreas Cambiaso, Old Man Alaba, not as old Leon Goretzka, alone Emmanuel Ugarte, and this random German striker all arrived. This was important because we played them in the Trophée des Champions, basically the French Supercut. The venues of these finals are random to say the least. Mbappe versus Mbappé 7 was a little dry. A save from Livakovic here, a long free kick from Moder there, but in the 75th minute, a Virginius cross to the far post met Orhan Chetin's head, but Donnarumma made a key stop. With the match approaching its ending, Max Aarons. What a save. Bro, Livakovic popping up big today. 2 big saves today. What the heck are you doing, Ake? Not a great way to introduce yourself. The fixtures in August, on the other hand, were better. 3 wins, which included 4 goals from last season's Czech transfer, Peter Kokesh. It should have been 4 victories, but cue the cannon. Then came my favorite time when you're in good form, international break. Auxerre proved to be frustrating, mostly due to Kokesh being gifted a goal and deciding not to open it. He then scored this, but was offside. As we entered into the 88th minute, Auxerre won on the counterattack, Gomis was left wide open, and he won them the game. I thought it couldn't get worse, but I got smacked up 3-0 by David Guillon Strasbourg, which saw Nicolas Pepe score. That was the last straw for Jose Luis Torres. On deadline day, I got transfer PTSD as a bid came in for my Bolivian wonder-kid keeper. It was a pathetic offer from PSG. They unsettled the kid, who legit signed a contract 3 months ago. He wanted Champions League football, like he was gonna play in it with Donnarumma at the club. I told him we'll qualify, and he laughed in my face. I refused to pull a Salah, so versus Monaco and onwards, his role switched with Livakovic. It wasn't going to be an easy start for the Croat though. Sergio Conceição was appointed as the new coach, post Lionel Scaloni's sacking for missing out on the Champions League spots. With us never defeating Monaco in this save, that trend would continue. At the end of the half, Wimmer would open the scoring. A bunch of nothing happened for the rest until the 94th minute, where former Paris FC players clinched a win for Monaco. 10th after 7 matches, so let's move on to something more positive. There's not much I need to comment here. 8 opponents in the league phase of the Europa League, and we secured 6 wins and 2 draws. Now guess the 2 draws. If you said Gladbach as 1, you were correct. But what about the second? It wasn't to Olympiacos. It was nearly to Sporting, but Kokesh scored an 88th minute winner. It was to Spartak, a side that finished 7th in the Serbian Super League, drew us 1-1 at our home, and probably deserved it. Funnily enough, we'd meet them again in the round of 16. Back into Ligue 1, like a flick of a light switch, the losing form went away. Marseille were a club struggling such as us, and this 6-pointer was crucial. OM created some half-decent chances, but they couldn't stop the special link between Virginius and Mbappé. That's all she wrote, and not too long after, our foe Vladimir Petkovic would see the sack. The challenges kept coming, as Mbappé versus Mbappé 8 was upon us. And this had a quick start. Rua allowed Cambiaso to win a header and place it perfectly for Fabio Vieira. Bragança then made this insane pass to Jakub Moder for the equalizer. But Vieira would get involved again. This instance as the facilitator to Mbappe, who took the lead. All of this was in the first 15 minutes, which is Mbappe's number. The problem is that he didn't start for the first time in the derby. What could have caused this great injustice? Well, I just forgot to switch him with Kokesh. Kokesh would miss his massive opportunity to equalize. We'd have to defend well to keep ourselves in the match, but with Mbappé subbed on at the break, it was all over for PSG. 10 minutes into the action, Moder finds Chroo, who lays it off to Mbappé, but before he can embarrass Donnarumma, Lucas Hernandez takes him and the ball out, giving Chroo a free shot to tie the match. The momentum was with us, and Mboop is put through with 15 to go. And Mboop misses the net. That was the moment. But we drew PSG for the first time in the save. That's what I call progress. Progress that didn't continue against Sochaux. Rennes, however, was eerily similar to the Paris derby, 2-2. This time from a Moder pen and a Shakur first-time lob. The boys were fighting, and Massi found Moder in behind, who cleverly squared it to Kokesh with his noggin. And unlike against PSG, he slotted it and won us the game. Unfortunately, the next 6 matches only had a single victory. It was against Reims, and saw the Czech man, whose name supposedly translates to a white powder, getting a brace. There were some decent moments, in particular a draw versus Nice with 10 men. By the way, the goal scorer Boudadi came from Bloc Foot 41 on a free 6 years ago, and has finally developed into a pretty good squad player. Regardless, 5 draws in those 6 fixtures was the recipe for regret. After Nice in early January, we were halfway through the campaign in 7th place, 9 points behind a Champions League playoff spot. It's sounding like the same old story as last year. However, with Crouden's New Year's resolution being more of a glass half full type of guy, let's take a closer look at the results. Adding the French Cup victories and Europa League fixtures, the club was on a 17-match undefeated run since that Monaco loss. The team was almost there, but if we wanted to cement ourselves as a great Ligue 1 side, the inconsistency had to go away. What better way to do that than finally defeating Monaco? 7 fixtures and no victories, but that changed on a cold Sunday in January. Mihalcha off a corner and an Oranchetin goal handed us a 2-0 victory. There was an early onslaught from our opponents, but some luck and Livakovic's big saves helped us out. This would kickstart a Ligue 1 run for the ages. David Guillon's Lorient brushed aside with a Kokesh brace, a hat-trick from the Czech man versus Lens, which proved to be one of the wildest matches of the season. In the French Cup, Toulouse were defeated narrowly by a 91st minute Moder goal. That led to the Coupe de France quarterfinal versus Monaco. Before that, transfers. Jonas Ricksetter proved to be a disappointing player and could never kick on, so he was sold for 9 million to Valencia. Then the saga with our Bolivian wonderkid keeper ended, as I swear after 10 bids, Manchester City bought the kid for 25 million plus bonuses. The only word I can say about you? Ungrateful. That caused me to panic buy this Peruvian keeper for 350k just because I needed someone. The only other signing made was another cheap fee, 550k for this South African player from Kaiser Chiefs. No, I will not attempt to pronounce it. I see him as Moder's heir. Big boots to follow. But focusing on to the French Cup, Monaco gave us troubles as they usually do. Sadly, this time they were able to score first. Too much space given to a guy as quick as Nico Gonzalez. We on the other hand could not respond and would fail to repeat as French Cup winners. Our undefeated run ended at 23 matches. Back to when Monaco beat us. Thankfully, Monaco didn't win the trophy either, as second division side Châteauroux embarrassed them. It's a shame they had to play PSG in the final. Don't you fear though, there was no mid-season slump as the Ligue 1 form was looking green. 4 wins on the bounce hopped us above Monaco into 4th place. We also got revenge versus Spartak in the Europa League round of 16, in big part to Mboop scoring 3 across both legs. That led to the 9th duel with PSG. We caught them between their Champions League fixture with Manchester United, but early on, that didn't affect them. The first 22 minutes saw Mbappe and Leon Goretzka adding to our continued misery in this fixture. However, Wilfried Nancy would soon have Jakub Moder imprinted in his mind. Gansha, Moder. Boom, 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 boom! Moder! Donnarumma, take that out of your net, mate. That's what Moder says to you. Free kick now. Bragansha. Moder! Already on the back of 2 Ligue 1 Team of the Season awards, he'd claim a 3rd as he ended the campaign with 11 goals and 7 assists. We were going toe-to-toe at the Parc des Princes and had a chance to win it, but like the match earlier in the season, it wasn't converted. Then, in the 84th minute, another corner kick for your boys Paris FC. Bragansha waiting. Whips it in? Nothing. Well, we have a lot of space. Bakour. Bakour! Is that on? We're beating PSG! Let's go! Bamba! For the first time in this save, PSG were defeated. Bamba Dieng would continue the winning versus Sochaux with a brace, and after the international break, Rennes were defeated 1-0. 10 wins in a row had us in 3rd, 6 points ahead of 5th place Monaco, but we couldn't get away from them, as they'd be our Europa League quarterfinal opponents. We've had many wild encounters against them, and this proved to be no different. This one, however, started with a bang. and boot quieting an already quiet Stade Louis II is one of many highlights of his career. Unfortunately, Monaco responded well, as Rua allowed Diego Moreira to find Rodrigo Ribeiro. Then prior to the break, our defense was all over the place, giving Monaco the lead. It got even worse when a Romanian center back decided to play volleyball, handing a penalty to Monaco. Thankfully, Livakovic brought memories of the 2022 World Cup. That was the turning point, as later, our other center back Alvaro Diaz was found off a corner to equalize. With 10 to go, we play out of trouble incredibly, get the ball forward, and out of nothing, our man of the season, Jakub Moder, reacts first to a blocked shot and heads it in. Going home with a 3-2 advantage was massive. The hype was subdued though, as we lost our first Ligue 1 fixture since September in between the legs. Despite having a man advantage, Metz scored the lone goal, and all the blame went to the chair. Nevertheless, with no goals in the first half, the Monaco tie was in our favor. However, things took a turn for the worst, as Braganza clattered Wimmer for a penalty. Livakovic was unable to save this one, and all was squared. The substitutions were going to be key, which included Bamba Dieng. With 15 to go, he was in the right place to reclaim our lead. At least, that's what it seemed, but he was offside. No, he's not. Seconds after, Moder hit the crossbar. It looked like Paris was going to win it, but in the dying moments of regular time, Wimmer got behind our backline and a Romanian man tripped him up. Because of the last man rule, he was sent off. Okay, I need to go back to this offside call on Bamba Dieng. I went to the sideline view, Orion Chetin looked onside, but he's not who the game questions. This was what was called offside. Looks onside to me. Some of you may say, look at it in 2D, and I did. Maybe he's a centimeter offside, but you can barely tell. And I don't play in 2D. This VAR call causes me to continue playing in my more offensive style. We get a red card because of our high line, and we lose the match in extra time because we concede a shot that Livakovic should be doing better on. So the Europa League dream is dead, and I was pissed. The boys couldn't get over it when Strasbourg rolled into town, losing 3-0. This had us only 5 points clear of Monaco for 4th, with 5 matches left. Despite some very difficult fixtures, we regrouped ourselves and won all 5 of them. Reims were easy, Lyon was tough, but we pulled through late, Marseille was wacky, Nice were plain simple as Brendan Rodgers was sacked, and Lille was manageable. If we take our last 17 Ligue 1 matches, 15 wins and 2 losses. That was what we needed, as Paris FC for the first time ever finished in a Champions League place. No playoff needed, as 3rd was our number for automatic qualification. Not too bad for a club with a cocaine addict as our top scorer. The downfall of Bamba Dieng has been disappointing though, but not as bad as Monaco's. 2 seasons in a row without Champions League football through the league, their only shot for Europe's elite was winning the Europa League. But those bozos got knocked out by the Europa League kings, who lost another final. It's taken up to our 8th season, but we finally get to play in the Champions League. I do still miss the group stages. Our debut in Europe's elite was a special visit to RB Leipzig, a club who finished 6 of the last 7 seasons in the top 4. I expected a tough match, but 32 seconds in, Chroo found Inflafo, the fastest a club has scored on their Champions League debut. I didn't fact check that, but we're going with it. Along with the alleged record, a debut win came too, as Leipzig had no response. It was seemingly looking like a smooth sailing campaign. A simple victory versus PAOK thanks to a Moussa Condé brace, which came along defeating Fenerbahce 3-0, and a super weak Standard Liège side 4-0. There was a rematch of the Europa League phase match against Gladbach. This time, it was a similar outcome, but with more goals. Then we hosted Barcelona at the Stade Charletti. There isn't much else to say since it ended 0-0.
Oh, what a game! Best game I've seen all season!
One more win could be enough for qualification into the round of 16, but with AC Milan and Liverpool in January, I'd rather talk about that later. The transfer budget for this season wasn't high, making it difficult to improve the team, specifically at left back. The perfect man was Rodrigo Dominguez, but he had the rig setter problem, inconsistent and injury prone. What could have been? Instead, I signed a different Mexican left-footed player named Cristobal Alvarado. He's more in the Ruel mold, but has a lot of potential and only cost 8.25 million. Meanwhile, exits came to fund another player. Pascal Rosa to West Ham for 10, Younes Benyaya to Standard Liège for 8, the disappointing Caio Henrique to Flamengo for 2.2 mil, and Patrick Pfeiffer for 1.6 to Westerlo. Adding that with the goal to improve the right wing, Virginius needed to go. He was fine, but not what we needed to thrive, so Galatasaray was his next destination. Anton Heiserholt was going to be his replacement, but during negotiations, he signed a new contract with Schalke. Luckily, Chroo had a plan B.
There's always a plan B.
Which was Giannis Hardy from Genk for 20 million. On opening day, he had a great debut against Bordeaux, assisting the lone goal by Chroo. Prior to deadline day, there was a disappointing draw to Strasbourg, but the team rebounded versus Reims, winning 3-0 with a Bamba Dieng brace. Inflafo also scored, and with him here, that allowed me to sell a striker. Not Mboop, don't worry. But instead, last season's Rookie of the Year, Peter Kokesh. He was good, but receiving 20 million up front was too good to turn down. Plus, he wasn't needed for Mbappe versus Mboop 10. A relatively one-sided first half didn't lead to any goals for PSG. However, the start of the second changed that very quickly. Ronald Araujo getting his own rebound was annoying to say the least. Luckily, new PSG signing Jose Gaya lost the ball to Hardy, who found Mboop for a legendary equalizer. He was ahead in the battle, and despite several new signings from PSG, we were in it. Until I realized Mbappe developed his left foot as well, where he cut onto it and scored the game-winning goal. And the battle with Mboop.
Thank you. Good night.
Mbappe also injured Michael Masi. I don't know what he did specifically, but Michael's spine clearly isn't looking good. That caused me to unregister him and bring in this Colombian defender named Guarin on loan. Ake was also still here with a new contract, and we would bring in another defender on deadline day. Alan Quintero Morones for 9.5 million from Chivas. I loaned him there until January because our non-EU quota was filled up, but I'll figure everything out when the new year comes. The first 10 matches of the campaign had some disappointing drop points. That included Monaco and their new coach, Marco Rosa. They have this Portuguese wonder kid named Adilson Tavares, who is out of this world. We witnessed that ourselves, but luckily, we were able to salvage a 1-1 draw thanks to Diakite. Another poor result was versus Lorient. Here's why you don't talk crap about other managers. Versus arch nemesis David Guillon, I said we would run rings around his old squad. That clearly didn't happen. The humbling was sandwiched between two wins, and smacking up Marseille 3-0 was pretty satisfying. That would continue versus Lyon, where Shakur would score in the first 10 minutes. Things were on the up. That was until 3 goals were conceded before halftime. So 6th place after 10 matches wasn't what Chroo envisioned, but there was one player who was giving us pride. Giannis Hardy was performing at a very high level. The winger role for the right side inverted just for him. Rebounding from Lyon, he gave misery to Montpellier with this strike from distance. Adding an assist to that gave him a 9.6 rating and a 4-1 victory. He also took advantage of Nice's fraudulence, leading to a 2-0 win. 13 matches in, and Giannis had 4 goals and 7 assists. It would only get better in a performance of a lifetime versus Lens. The Belgian would single-handedly destroy them, scoring 4 goals and assisting Mboop, giving the boys a 5-0 win. He would end the season with 12 goals and 11 assists, a 7.5 match rating, the Foreign Player of the Year, and a call-up to the Belgium national team. Not bad for a plan B. It couldn't all be good, as Rennes were giving PSG a run for their money, and their momentum was high when we hosted them. It didn't take too long to show it, as Maier chipped his countryman. Terrier headed in a second to our defense's confusement, and Bamba's goal proved to be too little, too late. Wins versus Metz and Guingamp healed that blow somewhat, but a lot still has to be done.
I'm so incompetent and rubbish at my job.
One has to go. Alvaro Diaz, our star Peruvian center back, Colombian right back Dylan Rua, who was coming into his own, or Michael Masi, the Paraguayan deep-lying playmaker who was injured for the past 4 months. No, I'm not trying to bring Brexit to France. With Morones coming back from Mexico and terminating the loan of Guarin, we still had 5 foreign players. Unless you come from any of these countries treated as EU, you're considered foreign, and we can only have 4. It was a tough decision, but after being informed about Alvaro Diaz's potential French citizenship for next season, I could loan rather than sell. The decision would be to loanless Masi, since Bragança can still do a job. The problem was that nobody went for him, and he was pissed. Fire was coming from his hair as he accused me of forcing him out. Trying to explain the situation fixed nothing. So I immediately unregistered him and hoped someone would come in by deadline day. Our final 2 Champions League matches were against 2 of the powerhouses of European football, AC Milan at home and Liverpool at Anfield. I had to imagine that Milan was going to cause us problems. They could only score a consolation goal by the end, as we were just about qualified for the round of 16. Still, we had to enter Anfield to face a Liverpool side that has won 3 Premier League titles, 2 FA Cups, and 3 Champions Leagues in 7 years. They also had some of the best wonder kids in the game, including one who we almost got for 1.4 million until they swooped in. Nevertheless, the first half looked promising, but Boudadi had multiple big misses. 0-0, but things exploded in the next 45. In the 58th minute, create some magic. Shakur to Bragança. Boudadi! 3rd time's the charm. 1-0. Paris FC. Minutes later, Musa would get himself sent off. I thought, oh, this will be easy. I'll make some subs. Instead, we conceded a goal out of nothing. Literally, the guy I mentioned earlier turned like a ballerina and made a pass Kevin De Bruyne would be jealous of. A draw would be fine though. How did they score 2 within the same minute? Despite being haunted by Vitorino, we still finished in 7th and would face Newcastle. As we got towards the end of the transfer window, we'd have a meeting with Bamba Dieng. With 1.5 years left on his deal, he planned to leave at the end on a free. And he magically ended up in Genk with 11.5 million on our table. Of course, the stockholders took 40% of that. Big respect to the man who helped us gain promotion to Ligue 1, and to this day, still has the most goals scored by a Paris FC player in a Ligue 1 season. It's a shame he couldn't carry on that form, but all good eras come to an end. Now Messi thankfully found a loan. Unfortunately for him, it was to Hertha Berlin.
What did he say f me for?
Sorry, Hertha fans. Hopefully, Michael will get over his anger against me by the time he comes back. It was time for the final Paris derby of the season. And it might have been the greatest so far. Mbappe versus Mboop 11. And this rivalry has really been one-sided. However, Mboop was channeling something special. Budadi, penal! Penal. Mboop had to step up. And of course, he sent Gorter the wrong way. Donnarumma and Hakimi were both missing in this match, and the former may have been missed more so. Mboop in behind. Mboop! Mboop! He's doing it! He's doing it! Mbappe wasn't going to get embarrassed though. They can do the same thing, and they got Mbappe to do so. Wow. No, Goretzka.
Yes, sir.
Offside. He's gotta be offside.
Yes, sir.
A frustrating collapse, but when everything seemed all but lost. Mboop! A hat-trick for Mboop! Oh, my tears in my eyes. We nearly got a winner, but our match ended 3-3 with both Mbappe and Mboop getting a hat-trick. Yet, Mboop still lost this battle with Mbappe. Regardless, I think we can put this rivalry to rest, as I think it's peaked.
I know.
The league form from here on out was less shaky. 9 wins followed, and the thanks has to go to our South African man, Bangu Musa in Tlafo. He was pretty subpar to start the season, but with Bamba Dieng gone, he made the most out of his new starting spot. A hat-trick versus Strasbourg and Sochaux, an 89th minute winner versus Marseille, a brace versus Nice, another one versus Reims, and an equalizer versus Lyon. However, with a penalty won in the 90th minute, the honors had to go to Mboop. That went along with 4 other wins, propelling us into 3rd for a title fight. Although a lot had to be done without Yacoub Moder. In total, Yacoub Moder missed around 4 months of the season with several injuries. He's been our best player for the last 3 years, and I know he's getting older, but it's tough to see his body breaking on him. He couldn't even avoid the bloody flute. St. James's Park was the destination for our first Champions League knockout match in club history. Despite Newcastle missing several players, they had a lineup to rival many, just not in the Premier League. We had other issues too, including both of our right backs being out and Alvarado suffering a nasty injury, so 4 natural center backs in the 4 defensive spots. Yet, we looked like the better team. With Budadi beginning to get more game time due to Moder's injuries, he was making the most out of his minutes. As we approached the halftime break, Budadi! Oh my gosh, that's come out of nowhere! He should have gotten an assist too, but Tlafo squandered it. Thankfully for us, he'd set up party for the second. Absolute scenes being 2-0 up away from home, and it lasted for about 1 minute and 5 seconds, the most glorious of defending. It seemed like things were too good, as the FM universe decided to cheese me in the 91st minute. No, not Rafael Leao. No! We were the better team, and yet only a draw. In the reverse fixture, there had to be slight adjustments for both sides. That included Newcastle starting the center back named Pat Tait. I thought he could be targeted, and that thought proved to be correct with him tackling Tlafo for a penalty 5 minutes in. Our icon Bergantia was going to take it. That hurt, and what followed did too. Please no, please no, please no, please no, please no. Because I don't know. And there was one more for good measure. Who knew a penalty for us would open the floodgates for the other team? As 6 fixtures remained, the league table was close, as a face-off against second place Monaco was happening. They eliminated us from the French Cup in February thanks to our penalty takers not having the best ratings. Still, this match would determine who would be PSG's title rival for the remaining games. With a few key players missing and a couple returning from injury, the cards weren't in our favor. Monaco has been insane, but due to their Europa League run, their players were tired. Sadly, that wasn't making a difference, as they proved to be worthy challengers to PSG. A bit of bad luck in the 42nd, poor finishing from Boudadi, and the secret plan being futile caused Rodrigo Ribeiro to double the lead. An 84th minute second goal wasn't enough. We were out of the title picture, and a draw versus Rennes emphasized that. Still, 4 wins in the remaining 5 games was positive. Plus, there are several players beginning to shine in this campaign, and if we can keep guys like Anfafo and Alvaro Diaz, plus seeing a few others continue to get better, next season could be special. If we got more than 10 million from the board. For the current title chase, Monaco won their final 7 fixtures, but PSG would one-up them, being victorious in the last 8. Fine margins. But I'm actually okay with PSG being crowned champions. I wouldn't be able to stand the insufferable millionaire Monaco Ultras if they ended up winning a trophy we wanted to win first.
Suffering, depression.
The pain never ends. When we first saw Alvaro Diaz, the Paris FC fan base's general thought was,
We do not care.
a Peruvian on an amateur contract at a club that translates to Army Technical School. If he was never found, the man might have ended up as a general rather than a footballer. Then again, I only brought him in to play on my B team. He supposedly had a lot of potential though, and despite his defensive attributes not being mind-blowing, the guy's value was higher than Maldini if he was reincarnated as a wonder kid today. In his first season, he developed like crazy, and as the years went by, everything on his attributes kept going up. The technical significantly improved, mentally he became a giga brain, and he went from a scrawny kid to an absolute physical nightmare. The 20 jumping reach emphasized that. 2 great examples of showcasing his hops were versus Lyon and Monaco, where he got a hat-trick in each. It's not often you see a 10.0 rating for a center back. Monaco was especially satisfying with the pain they have caused me. That game, along with Nice, where he scored again and got a clean sheet, led to a Player of the Month award, which rarely ever goes to anyone but attackers. You could put this man into Hercules' boots, and he'd make him look minuscule in comparison. Nevertheless, let's look at the class of 2030 and see who came in. The budget was limited, and nobody notable left except for Dawouda Diame and Dabila. On freeze, their role decreased as time went by. With Dabila, he was their second longest serving member, so salutes to him. Now the only noteworthy player to come in was Sretan Puntar from Dinamo Zagreb, a rotational left winger who started well, but would get a 3-month injury in late September. Regardless, the matches to begin the campaign were out of this world, and that can be thanked to one other man. In our 9th season, Bongamusa and Flafpo scored 8 goals in the opening 3 fixtures. The South African man was feeling himself and made Mbappe look average. The fun wasn't going to last long, however, as Strasbourg were handing us problems. Down 1-0 and luckily not by 2 thanks to Livakovic, we were heading to the last 15 minutes of the match. If we bring up headers again, Flafpo would win one to make sure Boudadi could equalize the game. Strasbourg scored immediately from kickoff. In despair, Flafpo would find an equalizer laid on to save us from embarrassment. He's so important to us, which is why it kinda sucks that he's equally that for his national team. Coming back from an international break that saw him score 5 against Sao Tome and Principe, I didn't want to risk him getting injured with a big game against PSG upcoming. The problem was, prior to Dijon, Mboop got injured, and I loaned my Luxembourgian striker out on deadline day. Yes, he's from Luxembourg. So the boys down 1-0 heading into the last 30 minutes, 4 key subs were made, which included our boy Bongamusa, and he annihilated the mustard bottle with 3 goals in 13 minutes. In that time, he also missed a penalty, so it could have been 4. The media was hailing this kid, and with PSG next up and coming off a loss to Montpellier, we could really take a mantle on this league title. 4-0. We lost 4-0.
Can you try and work out what it is?
Despite PSG scaling down their funding once again and having to sell players to clear their debts, they were still able to bring in a guy like Zaniolo on a free and Todibo to maintain an aging back line. I don't know what Wilfred Nancy had them cooking, but after we drew Rennes 1-1 a week later, the gap was 4 points between the Parisian sides. That gap would remain for a while. So I'll mention Ligue 1 again when PSG drops some points. Champions League fixture list that was arguably more difficult than last year. Had Chroo learned his lesson from then? Abso-flippin'-lutely. Inter didn't know what hit them. Oh wait, that's a Bugatti half volley from distance. And our other South African man got the third before the half-hour mark. Inter were stunned and would find it impossible to get back into the... A penalty in the 65th minute was causing panic, but we held them off. Now Standard Liège at home afterwards was going to be simple against such a weak side. What? It's all good. We'll sub on the big boys to win this match. Alright, wow, incredible. Ake is well past it, but credit to Standard as that wasn't the only big win they'd get. Nevertheless, heading into the Anoeta to face Real Sociedad had Chroo in awe. Luckily, he's not the one playing, as Ntlapo did not care and scored the opening goal following a nice sequence. Shakur nearly made it too, but he was stopped and Sociedad almost equalized off a corner. Thankfully, the win will be confirmed with Massi's pass slicing through multiple lines of players to find Orion Chetin. A second win on the board. But now, we have to play against Holland. Although, he was missing chances, and we were scoring in the 3rd minute.
I don't know what this is.
Honestly, this was similar to the Inter game, as Ntlapo would make it 2-0 17 minutes in, and our general Alvaro Diaz made it 3 before the clock hit 20. Man City weren't on it, while Pep would blame his tactics.
It was horrible.
Following, a match versus the Yellow Submarines wasn't too difficult. Despite Mboot missing a penalty, he would later score the lone goal to secure another victory. Puntar was unfortunately unavailable for his homecoming to Dinamo Zagreb, but with a rotated side and subbing on 4 key players, we were able to grab a winner from Yanis Hardy. Top 8 was looking more and more likely, but with 2 matches left, it wasn't guaranteed. Still, everything seemed promising going into the new year. All the Ligue 1 matches since Rennes were W's on the board, and we advanced to the 10th round of the French Cup, where we'd probably play an easy opponent.
Dang, that's tough.
I was hoping the first time I'd play PSG in the French Cup would be in the final, or just never, but an away fixture to the best club in France while having promises to some players about being competitive or even winning the domestic cup had me worried. It got even worse. This was the first match since a small winter break in France. That meant we are in January 2031, and you know what that means. Our top scorer and a good midfielder were off to an initial side quest, until that quest became their main adventure, and with the help of Bonga Musa getting 8 in the tournament, they'd make the final. In the final, Ntlapo was benched, but how do you say this name, man?
5 minutes later.
But Nvanve scored to help South Africa win their first African Cup of Nations since 1996. Congrats to our boys. But they were missing for over a month, which meant we got the return of Mboop versus Mbappe.
Stop everything! Ah! What?
Both were crap. Yet, out of nothing, we were able to open the scoring with a lofted cross by Hardy, finding Shakur for an empty net. We defended well, until Darwin got in behind late. But he took too much time and was blocked. PSG were eliminated from the French Cup. Yet, we had nothing to talk about in the league, so let's chat about the concluding 2 league phase matches of the Champions League. A win versus Dortmund would all but guarantee us in the round of 16 of the Champions League, yet Conte's team had luck on their side. A few wasted chances came and went, but after a Dortmund corner was cleared, Blanco found the ball at a tough angle and pulled this out of his arsenal for the lead. We responded with Savic coming off the bench to equalize in the 74th, but minutes later, Dortmund sent a ball in behind to the fastest man alive to take another lead. I was desperate and threw Alvaro Diaz up front. It nearly backfired as Castillejo just had to tug this home. Instead, he gave a nice pass to Livakovic, who booted it up to Alvaro, his header landed to Budadi, and he found Savic in behind for a last-minute equalizer. Still a frustrating result, which meant we needed a draw versus Real Madrid away from home. The reigning Champions League winners had assembled a great team, led by a Brazilian, not named Hendrik, up front. Only one team was in this match, and clearly, wasn't us. They get the breakthrough in the 37th minute, score another soon after, find a 3rd minutes post the halftime interval, and get another for good measure to finish off an error-filled night. Even our goal was a mistake by them. That meant we finished in 9th, on the same points to Real Madrid and Standard Liège.
Congratulations, you played yourself.
So the playoff round draw faced us up with Madrid's rival, Atletico. There were no Ligue 1 updates until then, but we did edge out our French Cup fixture, a 1-0 win over Strasbourg, which saw Shakur Mars scoring minutes before the 4th official brought up added time. We avoided penalties this time. In case you don't know, this is how the Champions League knockout playoff round works. 9th through 16th are drawn against a club who finished in 17th to 24th. They play a two-legged match, and the winner faces off with a top 8 team. Atletico Madrid were our opponents, and with Alfred Schroeder as their manager, he assembled an aging and not very athletic side. This allowed us to run rings around them at the Metropolitano, although only a single goal was scored, which was from Giannis Hardy. I didn't feel too threatened by them in the home tie, so I rotated a couple players out. Maybe that was a bit too disrespectful, as they tied the aggregate with a great ball from Taverner. This was no time to worry, as Mbappé with the captain's armband would find 2 and give us a 3-1 lead. Atleti tried to claw their way back, and even knocked one in because Ake is too short, but we did enough to meet Napoli in the round of 16. The rotation was needed, as we faced PSG in the league just 3 days later. We were 4 points behind PSG, and since our loss to them, they hadn't dropped a single point in Ligue 1. We were doing well to keep up, winning every single match since that Rennes draw. Oh no. Sorry, 1-0. The Catalan would get a second to piss me off, and I would blame our left-sided center-back Moranes for his poor defending. We couldn't give up, but Donnarumma, as he usually does, was blocking us out. Shakur Omar, on the other hand, was a little more clinical with roughly 15 to go. Big thanks to Mbappé winning the ball and finding him. Then, a free kick from Mulder, but it was no good. PSG had been a bit fraudulent this half, but... Diakite, no! Elise Mbappé finally won a battle. After drawing Marseille on matchday 23, we were 9 points behind PSG. Just to not waste any more time, PSG would only draw 1 match for the rest of the season. Yeah, they ended with 97 points. They never even got higher than 85 before this season. I know Mbappé is the best player in the game, but how are they doing it? Regardless, Napoli in the Champions League round of 16 was smooth sailing. Within 30 minutes, we saw Jakub Moder, Alvaro Diaz, and Bongamusa Enlapo scoring. When I thought we had it sealed, Rua would concede a penalty, which Osimhen slotted home. Still a great advantage, and the aggregate score was extended in Naples by Boo Daddy. Raspadori responded early in the second, but Dylan Rua, cutting onto his left foot, incredibly scored to keep a 3-goal advantage. Raspadori would then score a free kick. No worries, just defend this corner. Thankfully, their magic ran out as we moved on to the quarterfinals against Manchester City. I was worried about the challenge, so I adjusted my balanced 4-3-3 formation, but brought one of the center mids into defense to create a 3-4-3 or 5-2-3. The goal was to survive, but after a couple missed chances by City, I decided to play Alvarado in the actual wingback spot. 27 shots came for the citizens, but no goals for either side. For the home tie, I decided to revert back to the balanced 4-3-3 and hope we could get lucky. Alvaro Diaz made a terrible mistake, but he was able to push Haaland a little wide for a poor shot. We then go forward, and Boudadi finds Shakur at the back post, but he hits the woodwork. Haaland then scores, but he's offside. Another woodwork came for your boys, but it was from a weird angle, so was there even a chance? Then in the 74th minute, corner kick to Diaz. Yes! Diaz! Let's go! City would have a few more chances, but it wasn't enough as we shut them down and advanced to the Champions League semi-final. Before getting to that, the French Cup had us facing Ligue 2 side Nantes in the quarterfinals. This was a few days after the PSG fixture, leading to a rotated side. Maybe that was a bad idea, as the team conceded a goal before halftime. Itlapa would equalize, and while he's been inconsistent since AFCON, he came up big here. Fortunately, Nantes were pushing us to our limit, and we were sent into a penalty shootout. Both sides scored their initial pens, and AFCON winner Nvanve would give us the lead. Then, cue the following. Shakur Omar would show how it was done, putting us through to the semi-finals. Marseille away, and they seemed much easier than Nantes. Alvaro Diaz got one of his 19 goals in all comps, and Moder would score a banger. Some poor defending would get Marseille back in the game with nobody picking up Iliev. Then, even more idiotic defending, as for some reason, 2 players went to this guy, leaving Willock wide open for him to secure a great goal. We desperately didn't want penalties to seal our fate. So in the final 10 minutes, a throw-in led to a cross to Shakur, who was able to tiptoe his way around the defender for the game-winning goal. The final would be against AS Monaco. But before that, they came up in the Champions League semi-final. We've had many battles with Monaco in this save, but now the stakes were at its highest. They went through PSG and Liverpool to get here, but we defeated them twice in the league. And Crudan's side do it when it finally matters? Oh no. Wow, that was way too easy. Braganza, who became unhappy earlier in the season because he wasn't getting enough playing time. He's getting older, so I wanted to give the minutes to Masi, and I wish I continued doing that. Tavares bottled it. They scored 13 minutes later. This was the home tie, by the way, but when a hero was needed the most, Mboop off the bench kept us in it. The second leg in Monaco put a lot of pressure on us, and we needed to step up. What? Despite the complaining, we fought back with the cheat code of Alvaro Diaz. His defensive partner, on the other hand, I thought Quintero was gonna mess up again there. He's gonna mess up again. Oh my God. Costing us a Champions League spot right here. Like, my word. We get another one back. Holy crap. Oh, Diaz. Oh my gosh. Didn't get the header, but gets the rebound. 4-4 on aggregate. And heading into the last 10 minutes, I am nervous. So nervous. No. Game, please, no. Game, you can't be. No, you can't be serious. You can't be serious. You can't be serious. That's the goal we concede. After a tirade that led to nothing, we were eliminated from the Champions League. An excruciating exit. But we had one last game against them to show something for this campaign. Diakite, who's technically the longest serving player, came to me before the final. He said he wanted a new challenge, so that he could win more trophies.
But you stupid or what?
He was not brought on the team bus. We've won the French Cup before, but this final had our pride at stake. Oh, Budaddy. Playing about Livakovic though. What was Morales doing there? Come on, free kick, fine. Diaz. Who else? Who else but Diaz? No, unless if we can win it here, I would take it. Oh, Pavard is off. Extra time would turn into penalties. Penalty shoot will determine if this season's successful or a failure. Kang at least scores first, Modar next. Oh, no. If he hit the post and miss, are they gonna miss one? Oh my gosh, 3 perfect pens already. It's in their hands. Look, we've lost this. Oh, please, Livakovic, please save one. You will save one on Oliver, because Oliver's a fraud. Another perfect pen. I didn't expect you to be the key one right now. Please score. Thank goodness. We don't deserve the bad ending in this story. Come on, Livakovic. Yes. The 10th season with Paris FC. So can we finish off with a bang?
Yes, sir.
Damn it, Mbappe! With our largest transfer budget so far, and the use of heavy installments, we spent over 100 million. First up from Benfica, Ivanildo Mayonje for 29 million. The guy looks out of this world, and he came with several defensive additions. Mika Marmol, who will play left back, came in for 25.5 million. Mary Demiral from Tottenham arrived for 12.5 million. To back up Fikayo Tomori, who came from AC Milan for 32.5 million. Yes, they're all kind of old, but we needed some good players regardless of age. The last transfer for the time being would be Andre Alves Silva from Athletic Mineiro at 14 million. He'll be the keeper in the league, while Livakovic will play in the cups. Those leaving included last season's transfer of Gulan for 2 million, an academy player for 5, the other signing from last year Belair for 6, the Romanian Mihalcha for 12.25, and finally, the moron was banished. Dortmund picked him up for an eventual £58 million deal, bringing us to the new campaign. Everything seemed like it was going to plan. There was that loss to PSG away from home, but no way they will have as good of a season as the last.
Just watch me.
8 match days, and Paris FC had 7 wins and 6 clean sheets. Inflapa was specifically shining, but goal scoring was coming from different avenues. Chetan in September was the highlight, grabbing 4. Unfortunately, October began a mixed run of form. With Sporting already defeated, the fixture list for Europe's elite competition looked tough. Not ideal if we wanted to finish in the top 8. Also, with only 3 center backs available, my planning for the season could have been better. Nevertheless, versus Real Madrid, despite an early Saka goal, we survived an onslaught from the back-to-back winners, along with Messi scoring against the run of play. Well, that's better than last year. Marseille and Ligue 1 followed, and this is where the frustration begins. Only 2 minutes in, the downpour at the Orange Velodrome clearly distracted us as Mvuka found space in behind for the opener. The rain then calmed down, which helped Nhlapo getting chances. One got blocked, and another was squandered. Moving to the other side, a clown fiesta began, as instead of clearing the ball, Tamori decided to pass to Aitor, and he double Marseille's lead. Thankfully, Nhlapo wouldn't miss his next opportunity as he rounded the keeper for an empty net. Shots kept coming for Paris, but they were wasted. Marseille would shut us down in the second half to keep their 1-goal lead. Nice a week later looked to be a massive bounce back. 3 goals prior to the 25th minute was needed. That included this strike from Mboop. It should have been smooth sailing from here, but the second half was quite the opposite. Mopi in the 55th minute and Abdelkader in the 62nd brought them within 1. Thankfully, Alvaro Diaz would increase our lead, because Mopi would score again minutes later. We survived, but that can't be said about AC Milan. Just a terrible display from the team overall. Auxerre afterwards had to be a win if we wanted to be serious about this season, yet it was 1-1 late. When all hope was lost, our Croatian Puntar delivered by winning a penalty. He has the best penalty taking attribute on the team. Of course he stepped up. A draw with Crudan's mortal enemy Monaco happened after a win in the Champions League versus Slavia Prague. That match saw Nhlapo exchange goals with David Oliver, who, by the way, I wish I could right-click delete his ass from the game. Sorry, I'm just really annoyed at being 5 points behind Monaco and PSG. And also for missing another penalty. This one versus Juventus. Like really, why are we shooting it down the middle twice in a row? Juventus were dangerous, but not clinical. Alvaro Diaz on the other hand, was. As the game went on, Vitor Roque would throw away big chances, and Yanis Hardy would secure the dub late. Then came some deja vu. Facing off with Metz, just like in the Auxerre match, it was 1-1. Not really sure how we allowed this much space for their attack. Nevertheless, continuing the deja vu, we won a penalty in the last 10 minutes. This time, I picked Nwanwe. He scored in a penalty shootout versus Monaco, so he's got to get the job done. He seems composed, he seems ready. This has to go in.
Oh my gosh.
Poor man.
Professional footballer, you said.
Let me introduce you to our new training regime. The month of December saw Dijon defeated, followed by draws to Napoli and Lyon. I'm sure I was frustrated by these draws, but I'd rather not relive it again. 9 points behind first is not how I envisioned this campaign to be. Anything that could go wrong did. January was the perfect encapsulation of that. Lille and us put out an incredible show. So many chances for both sides, and each achieving at least 3 expected goals. So you'd expect our first goal to come well before the 81st minute, and be one of these several shots. No, our former keeper Tenas was pulling off his best Ochoa impersonation and would only concede this banger from Hardy. He stood on his head to win Lille the game and got a 9.1 match rating. Pain.fm number 2, we won our final 2 Champions League fixtures versus RB Salzburg and Celtic. Not so painful, and during the Celtic game, it showed that we jumped into 8th place, meaning we would avoid the playoff. The game ends, Crudan was feeling good, and we finished in 9th. Because Newcastle scored in the 95th minute. Guess who we have to play in the playoff round? Monaco! The final annoyance of January was not related to results. The other league fixtures were wins. It was the transfer offers. Bids kept coming for players who I didn't want to let go, but I clearly didn't prepare for this new season well enough because several had 18 months left on their deals. Rua and Masi to be specific. An offer came in for them. I said no. They came into my office, and I said no. Then they came into my office again saying, we're going to leave at the end of our contracts. To Masi, I said no, and threatened to send him to the under-19s. He didn't change his mind, and the game actually put him in the under-19s. This was added with an unhappy Braganza, who has lost his pace, along with Moder and Livakovic leaving at the end of their contracts. The fans were beginning to become impatient, so I had to please them in some way, and that was the transfer of Dumontier. I finally found an incredible left back. All it took was giving Westerlo 36 million. Westerlo, by the way, received a tycoon takeover from Qatar, so that's where PSG's money went. In what would be the final Paris derby in Crudan's career, 12 points separated us and PSG. In order to get that victory, I had to devise a plan. This.
Why?
Backwards S, zigzag, Donkey Kong Country map, whatever you want to call it. My other plan? Does Mboop start? They are tired. It'd be perfect for Mboop to be subbed on 65th minute and to get the game winner. Le plan was working as PSG were awful. Mboop would come onto the pitch, and after returning to the 4-3-3 since we were on top, Dumontier on the attack, finds Orion, and boom! Yeah! Diaz! For the first time ever, PSG were defeated while Mbappe had a higher rating than Mbappe. Things were beginning to look good. Now can that continue into the Champions League? Monaco defeated us in the Champions League semi-finals last year, so we now have an opportunity for revenge. Here we go. Oh, our new signing. Oh my, no! What? What? A thing I've learned about Mflapo after this season was that he's not particularly fond of big games. Also, the big games in the scout report only appear when the player turns 22. So of course, in a match we were dominating, we lost because David Oliver scored on us. One of his 52 in all competitions. Yeah, you heard that right. 52, which was more than Mbappe and Haaland. In the second leg, all we could do was continue creating chances and hopefully convert them while stopping Oliver. Things were in our favor at halftime, but we saw nothing of note. Moder was starting though, and if you remember, he doesn't have the best pass with Monaco. Still, when it matters the most, in the Champions League, the big pole showed up and equalized the aggregate scoreline. Then, in the 79th minute, corner kick, Diaz? Yes! Let's go! It's always Diaz. Not as many goals compared to the previous campaign, but he still has that clutch factor. That goal was the difference maker, as we eliminated last year's Champions League finalists and our bitter enemies. The round of 16 had Napoli, and it was simpler than our previous encounters. 3-0 in the first leg, and 0-0 for the second. We were looking good, especially after a 3-0 victory over Marseille. Yet, the gap to PSG just seemed too large. Setting our focus to the French Cup, we found our way to the semi-finals, where we have to play Monaco again.
The only thing I want is for you to disappear, go away, leave forever.
Another opportunity to get revenge, this time for that French Cup final. However, it wasn't looking good. Mflapo's goal was ruled offside, and Monaco would open the scoring from a set piece. A rebound tucked home by this Belgian kid named Malandane. David Oliver would of course also get on the board to double their lead. Not really sure how we went from 3 guys on Oliver to none. Mflapo's goal before halftime gave us some much needed hope. We were at home, and it was the final season at the Stade Charletti. The boys knew this, and couldn't allow Monaco to embarrass us here once again. Oliver scored 3 minutes after halftime. Well, there goes any chance of a trophy. Unless if we can win the Champions League. Liverpool in the quarterfinals of the Champions League was not so cool. Aside with Camavinga, some attacking new gens, and a 35-year-old Luis Diaz. Nevertheless, we were at home for the first leg, and had a good defensive setup to make sure no easy goals could go in. Why would my left center back Mika Marmol chase a player who's already being marked and leave all this space open while our left back was returning from a sprint up the pitch? Bless Dumontier for nearly getting there, but the match just began and we were this disorganized at the back. Liverpool were better than us in defense, but not perfect as Giannis Hardy found Shakur for the equalizer. Now, can we have a calm game? Alright, let's go chase Luis Diaz. Oh, he passed the ball, but we can't give Camavinga time and space. A match, so the rubbish. It's the Luis Diaz. You fools, you think I'm the threat? Ruben, do it. The 3-back was not working, so I returned to the 4-3-3. Dumontier had knee ligament issues, which brought on Michael Masi. He wasn't in the under-19s for long.
Mikey, no, Mikey, that was so not right.
We at least had to get one more, and with Perez getting sent off for Liverpool at the 71st minute, I had to push even more. In a fixture where everything seemed to go wrong, we ended up getting the best possible result despite that. It'd be Alvaro Diaz who'd score a second for us. Then right after, Giannis Hardy. 3-2 isn't great, especially going to Anfield, but it could have been worse. In between the legs, we did have to visit Monaco for the final time. Our squad was rotated, but if there was a match to sum up my feelings about them, it would be this one. At least Mbappe scored, am I right guys? Back to Liverpool, here we go again. This ridiculous cross from their left back had me questioning the laws of physics. Then off the counter. What? I initially thought it was a deflection, but it was an insane finish from this Garcia chap. Mflapo found a goal after the half, but Liverpool's resolve was too strong, ending any hopes of happiness. While winning every single match for the rest of the season was cool, it all felt empty. 80 points was the most we received in the save, and there were some really great performances on this team. Unfortunately, the drop points in the first half of the campaign didn't help us. Ever since Wilfried Nancy joined the Parisians, they've leveled up despite having the oldest squad in the league and having their funds reduced twice. This era could have been much better if it wasn't for Monaco. Whether it was in the French Cup or European football, they never gave us an easy time. And for the vast majority of the save, it was just heartbreak. Maybe we got promoted a little too late, maybe I didn't bring enough star players, or did that, but too late. This has been my longest FM save I've done since FM 18, well before this YouTube and my Twitch. While I didn't achieve everything I wanted, only one team can win, and in France, that's PSG. For Zinedine Zidane, at least he can say he has the same amount of European trophies as PSG. If you want to continue the adventure, check out my Patreon for more information.